I'd like to call this Tampa City Council meeting back to order. If I could get roll call, please.
Carlson. Here. Hurtak.
Here.
Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson.
Present.
Vieira. Miranda. Here. And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right. May I get a motion to open the public hearings? All of them. We have a motion from
Second.
Councilman Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to go to items 63 and 64. We have members from the Air Force Base. Yes, ma'am. So we're going to start with item number 63. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Rebecca Johns.
Department. This is the second reading or second public hearing for the development agreement for the Pinewood development. The development agreement has been revised based on discussions between the developer and MacDill Air Force Base. The development agreement and the developer, and Ms. Feely will go into this in more detail, but the development agreement has been revised to substitute the site plan for what you see here. This takes the some improvements in the parking area and some improvements in the what is now a greenway and trailhead. It takes that out of the clear zone. So we have revised the site plan, and we have also provided that because of these revisions, we now need to resurvey what would be the greenway parcel and the park parcel. It does not affect the overall boundary of the city parcel, but it affects that division now. So we've just provided that the developer will obtain surveys and legal descriptions of those two parcels, and that we will substitute that into the development agreement. And the developer and Ms. Feely are here for.
Good afternoon, Abby Feely, Interim Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity. When this matter left off, the direction was for the developer to meet with MacDill to try to work out some of the matters that were raised in relation to the clear zone and MacDill's desires for development of this property. That meeting just happened this week. I believe there was a subsequent meeting after they agreed to the changes out in the field yesterday afternoon. So what went into Sire went in yesterday, and I'm just here to say if there's an issue with that or anybody doesn't feel like there's been adequate time to review it, then it would be at the pleasure of council to continue this again. But I'm going to turn it over to Truitt and let him go over with you what those changes were and where we are today, and then we'll see what the pleasure of council is after that presentation.
Good afternoon, Truitt Gardner, 400 North Thassa Drive. Pleased to be here with my client, Brian Funk. Also pleased to be here with the good people of the base. As Abby alluded to, we met with them October 28th on base, and I'm pleased to present to you a compromise that, not to put words in their mouth, but I think they're happy with, we're happy with. With that, if we could go to the element, I'll just run through in the interest of time what we discovered through our communications with them, which were spirited and positive, what kind of their big issues were, and what the resolutions were for each one. So first, they wanted the design to be more of a greenway and a trailhead, less of a park. As a result, you'll see the paths have been changed where they're running, directly from the southeast corner to the northwest corner, northeast corner to southwest corner. So that was the change there. Secondly, if you'll recall, there was a large contiguous space. They wanted to minimize the ability for large gatherings. So by redoing the trail this way, that bifurcates that space. So that was big change 2. Change 3 is they wanted the access on Markham, which aligned, if you look on the purple side, previously aligned straight with that ingress egress point on Pinewood down on Markham. They wanted that as far west as possible to minimize its effect on the clear zone, so you can see where that slid over. It's not the optimal traffic flow for my client, but it's something that he could live with and wanted to compromise for. And then third, they wanted a reduction in parking, and then also as much parking removed out of the clear zone as possible. So that's the redesign now. If you'll remember before, it was just a straight north-south line down where green becomes purple. Now we'll call it the toe of the boot, is additional green space and less parking For the city's standpoint, everything you see, I'll call that orange, are city spaces. So city lost a couple of spaces, which they can live with. Mr. Funk lost the most amount of spaces, but he's fine with that as well. So those were the big compromises. The open items that I'll just say are going to be tabled for another time, and we talked to the base about this, and they can opine on it as well, are benches, ideally having those out of the clear zone. We'd like to provide some sort of seating in case somebody gets a pebble in their shoe or whatever that may be. And then also some sort of lighting. Obviously, they have the concern of lighting in planes, but the city and Mr. Funk also wants to make sure this is a safe environment for people using the Greenway and Trailhead. So we've agreed to find some sort of solution, which we feel confident that we will in the way that the development agreement is set up now. This is not the final design, so there's time for that. So pleased to bring that in front of you. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and I believe there's people from the base here as well.
Any questions? We have a representative here from the Air Force Base. Sir, if you want to come on up, please state your name.
All right, good afternoon. Tony Rodriguez. I'm the Portfolio Optimization Manager with the 6th Civil Engineer Squadron at MacDill Air Force Base. And we've had great conversations with the development team. They've understood what our concerns are, and they've adjusted their site plan accordingly, and we have no objections with this current site plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? Please state your name.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Pointer. So this is the first time I've seen these plans. Would have been nice if they'd have shared them. Everybody here has my email. I'm good with the reduction in parking. I just think that it's kind of rude to leave the neighbors out. But other than that, I do appreciate that we've made an amendment to the process, and it's coming forward that everybody will get notifications for these kind of deals going forward. And I think that's really important. And I appreciate the legal department moving forward on that and making sure that the neighborhoods will be notified from now on. But I'm good with the reduction in parking. I would have liked to seen the north and south parking gone because we didn't like it to start with, and we would have liked to see more trees. Thank you.
Wait, Councilman Miranda.
I just want to thank the developer and thank the other for base, especially the Councilor Gardner for doing what he's done best in his life, is make sure that both sides are not happy and makes them kind of happy. And down the middle, when you make both sides unhappy, guess what? Things get done. So I want to thank all of you for doing what you've done, and I know it's going to be a nice project for the city and certainly for the developer and for MacDill Air Force Base. Thank you all very much.
Any rebuttal?
Truett Gardner again, just to Mrs. Pointer, want to make clear, we did not leave her out intentionally at all. As you can imagine, this meeting was spirited, a lot to cover. That then gets sent to civil engineers, landscape architects. So it was not an intention to leave her out. Things were just happening that quickly. I think we got the final version yesterday at some point. And then that was, submitted to the file and everything else. So just wanted to make that clear.
Yes, ma'am?
Well, in light of 2 hurricanes, I think you all did pretty good, and I'm glad that you all are on the same page.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to close?
So moved.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Clendenin, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Who would like to move the resolution for
moved.
63?
63 DA 8133.
The substitute
Substitute
resolution.
resolution.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, item number 64. There's nothing to add, correct? No? All right, we have a motion to close 64, second from, what?
Second.
You don't need to close, all right, can I get a motion to move the resolution for 64?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember, substitute resolution. Councilmember Clendenin with the motion, second from Councilmember Henderson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right, thank you very much. All right, let's see, where are we at now? We move to open all the public hearings. These are non-quasi-judicial for the first few. So item number 57, we have a second reading here. Mr. Massey?
Yes, sir. Morris Massey, Legal Department. This is the second reading of the ordinance that needs to be passed by City Council, officially renaming the Brickyard Plaza between this building and the Tampa Municipal Office building after Councilman Miranda. So,
Charlie Miranda, it says here.
I have to abstain.
Yes.
All right, is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on item number 57? No? Can I get a motion to close? Motion to close from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. Councilman Miranda. Why not?
Oh, do it.
No.
Just ask, what would Louis Vieira do?
No, I don't.
All right. Councilman Vieira.
Let's see here. I hereby move an ordinance presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, approving the naming of the Brick Plaza and Courtyard located between Old City Hall and Tampa Municipal Office Building as the Charlie Miranda Plaza in honor of Councilman Charlie Miranda and his almost 30 years of service to the City of Tampa and its citizens as a member of Tampa City Council and as a community leader, providing an effective date, oh dear Lord, nunc pro tunc. I should know what that is.
I was gonna say
As
lawyer.
I know. As of October 3rd, 2024.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Henderson. Please record your vote.
I abstain, really. I don't. I vote no.
That's funny, I voted no as well.
It's all right. 2 noes, still passes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you very much. Item number 58. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Marcy Hamilton, Assistant City Attorney. On item 58, it's a second reading to enact a purchasing ordinance, be section 2-286 for a 3-bid requirement for any contract for public improvements or any other purchase that's over $5 million. This was a motion that was originally brought by City Council.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Motion to close.
We have a motion to close from
Second.
Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Miranda, would you mind reading 58?
No, sir. Let me pass to Mr. Carlson. It was his original motion.
All right, Councilman Carlson? 58?
Move file number E2024-8 CH2, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending City of Tampa Code, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, purchases and contracts by enacting Section 2-286, 3-bid requirement for contracts for public improvements or other purchases exceeding $5 million, providing for repeal of all ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing effective date.
We have a motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item number 59.
Marcy Hamilton, Assistant City Attorney. This is another motion that was presented by council. This is a purchasing ordinance to enact section 2-287. This is regarding cooperative purchases, better known as piggybacks, that you had requested that we provide background information regarding why we want to use the piggyback.
Any questions? No. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on item 59?
Move to close.
We have a motion closed from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilmember Henderson, would you mind reading 59?
Turn on my microphone. I move file number E2024-8, Chapter 22, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending City of Tampa Code, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, purchases and contracts by enacting Section 2-287, purchases through use of other cooperative contracts, providing for repeal of all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item
Thank you.
number 60. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
McLean Evans, Assistant City Attorney. Good afternoon, Council. This is the first of 2 scheduled public hearings for proposed brownfield area designation of a property located in the general vicinity of 2302 East Hillsborough Avenue. The area proposed for brownfield designation is comprised of a single parcel located in East Tampa and is approximately 13.42 acres in size. The property owner, Hillsborough Apartments Limited, has requested this designation and plans to redevelop and rehabilitate the site into 356 affordable housing units available to households earning 120% or less of the area median income. The City of Tampa is a financial partner in this project, contributing $12 million in furtherance of this effort to make more affordable housing units available. Details of this designation have been outlined in a document entitled Staff Report Richmond Hillsborough Apartment Green Reuse Area Proposed Brownfield Area Designation, which is available for public review both in the clerk's office and online through OnBase. At the conclusion of the second public hearing, which is scheduled on November 21st, 2024 at 5:01 or soon thereafter as possible, Council will have an opportunity to pass a resolution designating the Richmond Hillsborough Apartments Green Reuse as a brownfield area. The applicant's available remotely if you have any questions and would like to ask them.
Councilman Hurtak.
This is the Funland property.
Yes, that's correct.
I drive by there all the time. That sucker's going up. So I guess my question is, why are we doing this now instead of before the construction began?
Is the applicant available? The statute does allow for, as long as they're designated by the end of the year, they can apply for everything they've done that year, but I'll let Abby elaborate.
Exactly what McLean just said. It's my understanding, and who's online? Is it Kimmy?
No, it's
Brett?
Brett.
Okay. What they do is once they'll get the designation, they're eligible for a credit through other financing, so that's why we're doing it now. They've already done the work to remediate the site.
Okay, that was
before
my
they
question.
constructed it.
Okay.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
no problem.
No,
Okay.
because when I saw the report come across too, that's when I reached out to McLean and I was like, remember, we're investing, this is the Funland property, and that's why we put that in the report too, and I'm here today, because normally you wouldn't see me on a brownfield designation.
No, but I wanted the public to hear that, because when they
Yes.
know this,
Yes.
they know the Funland site. I don't want anyone to have the, just
Impression.
even the slightest impression that we are doing anything that would impact folks who are gonna live on this property. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody do you need to add anything, Brett?
Good afternoon.
Anything to add, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Brummins with the Goldstein Environmental Law Firm. We have offices at 2100 Ponce Boulevard in Coral Gables. Here on behalf of the applicant, I have nothing to add other than to thank you for your consideration of this request and for the city's support of this project. And as staff mentioned, this designation will help the applicant recoup costs associated with excavating and disposing of contaminated soil left at the property from historical users of the site.
Thank you. Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, just along the lines of the discussion that was just there, just for people who don't know what a brownfield is, somebody who hears us do this may think, okay, now you're going to turn it into a brownfield, but can you just, I know you kind of said this before, can you just say again that, and I'll put words in your mouth, that this is for the purpose of getting rebates or grants related to cleaning up, and they've already cleaned it up? Yeah.
Correct. McLean Evans, Assistant City Attorney. So there's a statute referred to as the Florida Brownfields Act. It makes parties who are only the non-contaminating parties, right? So if you're the person that contaminated it or the party, you aren't eligible. But if you come in and want to develop a site and it has previous contamination and you pay to clean it up, you can apply for a brownfield designation, which is the very first step to entering in the Brownfields program. The only part that the municipalities, in this case the City of Tampa, handles of this whole process is simply the administrative process of saying, yes, they meet the criteria to be categorized as a brownfield, and so therefore then we bring forth the application for council's consideration as to whether or not to designate it. After that, the applicant and developer go back to the state to move forward on what the plan is and what they're gonna do and all of that kind of stuff. In this case, the developer likely did that ahead of time before the designation, which is also allowed.
All right. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on item number 60?
Motion to close. Second.
No vote, just a motion to close. Is that correct? All right. We have a motion to close from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. And the second public hearing on this item is going to be on November 21st, 2024 at 5:01 p.m.
Thank you.
315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602, United States, Earth. Thank you very much. I'm gonna get the planet right. 61? North America, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It came to our attention after public hearing and until this at our break, that we had a notice issue on items 61 and 62. So I've got two motions to cure those. I move to set a public hearing, this is for item 61. I move to set a public hearing on December 5th, 2024 at 10:30 a.m. or as soon thereafter in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602 on the proposed designation for a brownfield area for rehabilitation pursuant to Chapter 376 Florida statute for property generally located in the East Ybor area consisting of approximately 0.51 acres in the city of Tampa, Florida.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Shelby, I know there's the gentleman in the audience here.
Yes, I just want to know if, is this issue resolved then? Because I was not aware of this motion as being brought forward. That's okay, I don't know the background of it.
I'll brief you later.
Does the gentleman want to come up and speak?
Sir, is there anything you need to say?
No, come on up. We need to get you at the front with the microphone.
You really don't have to explain anything. I'll find out what's what. The rest is up
Just so he knows, this is rescheduling the public
Please state
hearing.
your name.
I'm Matthew Raddick, and I was just informed, and you just announced that the real meeting is going to be December 5th, so I can just make my comments then if I have any more, correct?
That's correct, but I just want to clarify, this is a motion of council to set the public hearing, but it still requires it to be noticed again. Is that correct? This is not a continued public hearing. So this gentleman being within 300 feet should be receiving something in, no?
This is
Maybe I need to be, something needs to be explained the public might want to know.
McLean Evans, Assistant City Attorney. So there was confusion in the public comment. I believe he must have been referencing city land use notice requirements. The Florida Brownfields Act statutory notice process is through Chapter 166 of Florida statutes. There is no individual mailer as part of that notice. The reason 61 and 62 were misnoticed is because they were published on November 1st, and the statute requires that the newspaper publication be published at least 7 days before the first meeting, and the intent was for today to be the first meeting, but we only noticed it 6 days in advance. So we have already noticed, so at the pleasure of council, we would like the already announced and noticed evening, November 21st at 5:01 p.m. or as soon thereafter, to be the first meeting now, and the second meeting will be the daytime meeting that Councilman Clendenin just made the motion for, if council agrees, for December 5th at 10:30 a.m. or soon thereafter. So today is not a hearing. It was not
This is just
properly
setting
noticed.
it. And this
Correct.
is, this
It's
would
just
be
setting
your
the hearing.
notice.
Correct.
Councilmember Hurtak?
I'm confused. So the first meeting is not going to be the 5th. The first meeting is going to be the 21st?
Correct. Council had already announced, and we had noticed today and November 21st.
Okay.
The statute requires 2 hearings, 1 daytime, 1 nighttime.
Okay.
And so we're going to keep the 21st.
Just to
unless-
make sure the public, the gentleman knows.
All right, we have a motion.
If I can, I'm sorry, just
Yes?
one last thing. Does the December 5th date need to be re-advertised, or no?
The December 5th date will need to be published in the paper.
Yes,
But
not-
no
no
mailers
mail
will be
notice.
given, because
Thank
that
you
is
for
not
that.
part of the Brownfields notification process under the statute.
Okay, thank you.
It's the signage on the property. In this particular case, because it's a privately owned property, there was already a on-site or as close as possible there. In August, there was a public meeting. And so, but before city council, there needs to be 2 hearings. The 21st of November will be the first, and if council approves, December 5th will be the second.
Yes?
So, and sir, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Are you comfortable understanding what the brownfield designation is? And so then the staff has been able to go through all that with you? So-
Yes, sir, and this will give me a little bit more time to learn more about it, so I appreciate it.
Very good, thank you.
We have a motion and a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Item number 62, Councilman Clendenin.
Item number 62, same issue. To cure item 62, I move to set a public hearing on December 5th, 2024 at 10:30 a.m. or soon or after in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602 on the proposed designation for a brownfield area for rehabilitation pursuant to Chapter 376 Florida statute for property generally located in the vicinity of 813 Channelside Drive, consisting of approximately 0.49 acres in the city of Tampa, Florida.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Clendenin with the motion, second Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, we have the 1:30 public hearings. We already moved to open them, but there are requests to withdraw 65 and 66. May I have a motion? Motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
65 and 66.
Yes, ma'am. They were withdrawn. Item number 67. This is a first reading. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Kamaria Pettis-Malkel from the City Attorney's Office. Item number 67 is an ordinance being presented for first reading to repeal Code Section 18-8, which is regarding the Citizen Review Board. On June 6th of 2024, the legal department gave a presentation on House Bill 601 that it impacts the Citizen Review Board. After the presentation, City Council approved a motion for the legal department to provide an ordinance repealing Code Section 18-8, which is before you this afternoon. During public comment, City Council received public comment from Mr. Albert Cook, who is the chair of the newly enacted Chiefs Advisory Council from Chief Burkhoff. We have also here with me is Mike Schmidt, who is the legal advisor for that council, if anyone has any questions. But with all the updated information on how the city has reacted as in regards to, as a result of House Bill 601, I'd ask the City Council to approve the ordinance on first reading.
Any questions? Mr. Schmidt, do you have anything to add? No? All right. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on item 67? We have a motion to close from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. I'm sorry? No?
You didn't have to close that.
We didn't? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Clendenin, would you like to read 67?
I will.
Thank you, sir.
I move file number E2024-8, Chapter 18, an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, repealing the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Section 18-8, Citizen Review Board for the Tampa Police Department, providing for severability, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you. I'm going to vote against this because it was clearly stated, even by the person who sponsored this bill, that no boards would have to be closed. We are closing this not because we have to, but because we want to. And I just want people to, this is my opinion on it. This is what I've read and found out. So I don't believe that we need to close this. But if they choose to, if you all choose to, it's on you. I'm voting no.
Councilmember Carlson.
Initially, I supported this, but I'm going to vote against it just because I disagree with the legal opinion on it. I've gotten several legal opinions, and it appears that we don't need to vote to do this. Also, I just want to say to the public, this most likely will be repealed or it won't be able to move forward. And, you know, I was an activist in 2015 when Biking While Black came out. And what happened at the time is 22 civil rights groups got together and they protested the Buckhorn administration for essentially racist policies inside the city of Tampa. That policy and the subsequent one that the Tampa Bay Times found, renting while black, resulted in United States Justice Department's civil rights investigation. To my knowledge, the renting while black investigation by the Justice Department is still going on. The CRB, for any of the activists who may know, the CRB was not meant to try to police the police. It was meant as a reaction to try to control an administration that had created racist policies. And somehow we've got to come up with a charter amendment or something that will prevent future administrations from doing that. We should not have racist policies in the city. There's a big difference between enforcing the law. We need to stand behind our police officers and we need to enforce our laws, but we should not create policies that intentionally discriminate against people because of their race. Thank you.
Councilmember Miranda, Councilmember Condon. And your microphone, sir. Yeah. No, it's good, it's good.
It's pretty red.
It's red.
Just like
I
Hillsborough
want to see
County.
blue.
Just like Hillsborough County.
Just for the clarity of my own mind, no one in the city council wanted to do this. It was brought up by somebody in Tallahassee, am I correct?
Correct.
That ruled these boards not acceptable to the laws of the state of Florida.
Correct.
So we're doing something to appease ourselves, help ourselves, to maintain some contact with what's going on in the community through the new way of doing it without being a law.
Correct.
So thank you very much. I want that on the record.
Councilmember Condon.
You know, I think I was going to reiterate the same thing, is that, you know, in the concept of what the city of Tampa did with the compromise of creating this review board was the right thing to do at the time. It's a different environment, and this is not a city of Tampa issue. This is a Tallahassee issue. We need to conform with. So I'll be supporting that on the advice of our legal counsel.
Councilman Vieira.
If I may, thank you very much. Yeah, and there are things that we can do. I remember a couple years ago, we passed on the second try the Tenants' Bill of Rights, which to my knowledge, I think was one of the only properly termed civil rights bills that we've passed. It was first voted down by council, brought back, and then we supported. There are things that we can do to enhance rights. This was something that was originally passed when we could do this. Like I've said before, if I was in Tallahassee as a state representative or a state senator, I would have voted no on this. I think this is awful. I think that local communities have an ability to do certain things within parameters, and I think the city of Tampa's CRB was something that worked for everybody, police officers, the community, et cetera, because you do need functions that promote community policing, that promote community involvement, that promote some level of dialogue and engagement. I think that's good for cops. I think that's good for community members. I think that's something that's good for everybody. There were numerous proposals to add on to this committee. Some I voted for, like the attorney. Some I voted against, like subpoena power. I try to take everything one piece at a time, but supporting the overall thing. But again, had this come up in Tallahassee, I think that all of us would have very likely voted against that bill. Not just for what Tampa has, but for what we should be allowed to have, I think, in communities. So the way I see this, our hands are tied, as I interpret it, and speaking with council. So just my opinion. Thank you very much.
All right, roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Carlson,
No.
Hurtak,
No.
Clendenin,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
and Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson and Hurtak voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 5th, 2024 at 10 o'clock a.m. at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes that. Was there anything that I pulled that was going to come first under staff reports? We took care of number 8. Huh? Oh, that's right. 19 through 22, the event permits.
Just less than.
I was going to say, the Vera 3 minutes. This is the event.
Is there anybody here for 19 through 22?
I thought Mr. Brody was going to be here. I saw him here earlier.
Let's give him a moment. He might pop in.
We can go back.
We can go back.
All right. Anything under administration update, or did the chief of staff cover that already this morning? Yes. He did? You're good?
Yes.
Item number 69 is $6.5 million. Mr. Baird sent a memo with additional information. Is there anybody here from staff for item 69? Are there any questions or need for staff?
No.
All right, can I get a motion to move
Motion to accept,
Move the resolution.
move the resolution.
This is for item 69, motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Henderson, all in favor? Aye. Item number 70 is $6 million. Mr. Baird, I saw him on. Do we need Mr. Baird for anything? All right, can I get someone to move the resolution for 70? Motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Clendenin, all in favor? Aye. All right, we have another contract, $14.3 million.
Motion to move the resolution.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Vieira, all in favor? Aye. All right. Mr. B-Day is gonna come up and present on 72 and 70. Oh, I'm sorry, this will be real quick. Mr. Brody, the 19 through 20. Yeah.
Not even enough. Good afternoon, Carl Brody, Legal Department. I just wanted to come forward to discuss the special events ordinances that were up.
Yes.
Specifically, what occurred on this situation is that the items 19, 20, 21, and 22 were previously approved by City Council before the hurricanes.
You out of breath.
I am out of breath. I ran up here like,
Technology, Carl.
like lightning, yes.
Just that
Okay.
excited to see us.
Yeah, no, so those were approved by council back at a previous meeting, and because of the hurricanes, the dates had to change. So that's why this was brought back, in order just to provide notice of the date changes.
These events have already happened?
Yeah, they're.
Yes.
So why do we have to act on it? So why do we have to act on it?
I think that Mr. Mulkey provided to you is kind of a courtesy, because under the ordinance, you're required to approve any special events.
Both bodies.
Right. So since it was already approved technically, he probably didn't have to bring it back to you. But as a matter of just to make you aware that the dates changed, he brought it back.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
That makes sense.
Motion?
Mr. Mulkey, do you have anything to add?
Good afternoon, Council. Tony Mulkey, Parks and Recreation Department. Just wanted to add a little detail that the only one of these events that actually took place in the right-of-way was the Alzheimer's Walk, and that had been previously approved on, I think it was the August 22nd. That one was approved by council. So this was bringing it back so that our files were kind of compliant and cured with the code. Just wanted to make sure. The others were just kind of event details as far as like pedestrian safety. So the events didn't actually take place in the right of way. The third Thursday one is actually for a full quarter of 3 events. So that does have some future events in there, and we wanted to make sure that got in front of council. That one was delayed because of the hurricanes with the canceled meetings. So those events still have some dates taking place in November and December.
Councilmember Hurtak,
I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
thank you very much. Councilmember Henderson, would you like to move those items?
Please move those 19 through 21.
Second.
22, thank you.
We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Brody.
Thank
All
you.
right, we go to 72 and 73. I ask council to please let Mr. B-Day finish his presentation, and then we're going to take it to questions. This is Tampa City Council. Have you not been at this? Yeah.
I recognize us.
All right, Mr. B-Day, go through your presentation, and we will hold any questions or comments, no interruptions until you're finished, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Chair. An afternoon, Chair, afternoon, Council. Vic B-Day, Director, Mobility Department. Here to address items 72 and 73. A memo to that effect was sent by me to Council a little late, but it's on the file. So you've heard from the community this morning, this project, the South Howard Flooding Relief Project. That's what these 2 motions are about. I want to give a little bit of a background on how we came about with this project. I think that's important for clarification. What our goals are with this project, how the contractor was selected, and some of the concerns that the community has put out there. Invalid concerns, I would say. So first and foremost, this project addresses the watershed that is enclosed by Palmacia Pines, Parkland Estates, New Suburb Beautiful, Bayshore Garden, Bayshore Gardens, and one other neighborhood. This was documented in the original study done by JMT, and on page 1, it kind of shows what the watershed is. And Oh, yeah. Sure. So I'm just gonna speak about this report here for a second. First, we've known that this area, or this watershed, has an insufficient drainage system and an outfall system for at least more than 2 decades. We've known this area has insufficient drainage. The challenge historically has been resources, which was addressed in 2016 by the improvement assessment. Thank you, Chair, for being the critical vote on that. And that created the resources for this project. We've studied this for the last 9 years, the stormwater engineering team, and we've got a very proficient team that have looked at various options through 2 consultant studies and in-house studies. We had Best Inc. Do some work for us, we had Dewberry do some work for us, and then JMT. And then in 2022, we had JMT look at all of these studies with the goal to develop feasible and realistic alternatives for projects and present different options and make a recommendation. We looked at over 19 different route options. And I'll just put that picture out here just to give council an idea that
zoom out a little bit.
There you go. And that's Bayshore down here. So this study has received careful studied consideration, this entire assessment and review. In June of 2022, this project first appeared in the quarterly report that we submit to council that highlights all of our major projects, and this was listed as one of the major projects. It also highlights smaller projects. Section 2 of that quarterly report, and I know there was discussion about it earlier today, breaks down how much we collect in service and improvement assessments. And there's been some confusion or maybe some question about what's the difference between the service and improvement assessment. And I'll reiterate, the improvement assessment pays for large capital projects, like the project being proposed right now. The service assessment pays for 2 things. One is the Stormwater Operations Division, the team that actually goes out there before storms, after storms, and does some portion of maintenance. The other portion of maintenance is done by contractors. And all of our production work is documented on tampa.gov/metrics under mobility and stormwater operations. So we have metrics there. In addition to that, I receive weekly metrics from our stormwater operations team. Again, just a background on all of that. So again, we've known about this for decades. We planned different routes. We were presented a feasible, realistic alternative of leveraging South Howard Avenue. Now, this is how the South Howard Flooding Relief Project came about. The main 3 reasons for the South Howard route. One is there is a box put in maybe 40 or 50 years back under the CSX tracks. This is critical because CSX coordination, as many of you might know, can delay any project by several years. It has happened before, and that is a factor. The other part of this, because this is a gravity system, the outfall goes out to Bayshore, there's an existing box at Howard and Bayshore. So leveraging these 2 assets and then leveraging a linear path, which is the second piece of it, because it's a gravity system, you don't want a lot of 90-degree turns. A linear path to convey water down to the outfall was the other reason this was selected. The third reason had to do with cost and viability. And there are many factors related to viability, but when it comes to cost with stormwater projects, especially box culvert projects, and I'll touch upon why ponds are not feasible and other options that were discussed today, is simply the distance of the project. The length of the project drives the cost because of the size of the box. So McDill was mentioned earlier today. A project along McDill to impact this basin would be about 50% longer in length. Plus, it conflates the design because the box may have to be larger. We don't know that yet because that's a function of design because it collects other drainage basins along the way. The same with Swan going out to Bayshore. That's about 30% larger. So South Howard or adjacent routes were the most viable. So that's about the routes. As I mentioned, the project was defined in the quarterly report of 2022. In 2023, we selected the design build team for this project. This was done using the CCNA method. This is how we select all design build contracts. It is the proper method for large projects. This is a progressive design build project. We selected Kimmons for this project with Atkins Realis as their primary consultant and a slew of sub-consultants. Kimmons has a stellar track record. Most recently, they just did, or are in the process of finishing, the McDill 48 Lower Peninsula project. This project, by the way, just won the ASC, American Society of Civil Engineers Award at this year's annual meeting for infrastructure. So it's an award-winning project. This project, along with other projects that we have done since 2016 and the improvement assessment, so I'm talking about Cypress Street Outfall, Southeast Seminole Heights, Upper Peninsula by Dale Mabry and Henderson. All of these projects, through the 2 storms that we just had, through the record wettest September to date, performed very well. So the drainage systems in these project areas worked well. We know these projects work well. We have no reason to believe this project will not deliver the outcomes that we're looking for. And what are those outcomes? The outcomes ultimately, through the design process, are to build the largest possible stormwater system to mitigate flooding within this basin. We have modeled the box for a 100-year event, and all the other subsystems will be modeled for the largest possible capacity. Based on our modeling so far, we feel like events like we have seen recently would have caused some street flooding, but would have mitigated a majority of the structural flooding, meaning homes. And again, this is based on modeling after the storm, knowing the original modeling with the JMT, and our experience with other stormwater projects that are similar to this. I want to highlight a little bit about outreach and some of the resources where you can find information on this project. So we've already done a lot of preliminary outreach on this project. I understand there was some concern about us not having done enough outreach, but even before an RFQ was released, we met with key members, neighborhood members. Then we met with the Soho Business Alliance. We're very clear about what this project is, what it's not, that it will be impactful. Projects like these, especially box culvert projects, will be impactful. But projects like these are also generational projects. They set forth infrastructure for the next 50 to 70 years. That infrastructure lasts even longer because we've got 100-year-old infrastructure in the city today. But in engineers speak, the warranty is for 50 years, I guess. But this infrastructure will last a long time. It considers sea level rise. We have to consider sea level rise because we've received a $10 million FDEP grant. So when we get into the design phase of this project, it will consider the latest available data in light of our resilience challenges. And I'll get to the design piece because it's critical in a second. The funding for this project is varied. $39 million comes from the improvement assessment itself. $11 million is being committed by THEA. And they're committing $11 million because as they do the Selman Expressway project, they're required to do some mitigation. So there's some value for both entities in this partnership. So we're benefiting from that, as is THEA, I would say. FDEP, through their Resilient Florida program, awarded the city a $10 million grant that council graciously approved earlier this year. This was a competitive grant, and it comes with very clear guidelines and a review process. This money could have gone anywhere, but FDEP saw the value in investing in this project for the anticipated outcomes. I only say this, that this is an additional set of eyes that validates this approach and this project. I'd like to now highlight a few items that the community had mentioned relative to just various concerns. So I think the issue of surge was brought up, that you put in a box culvert with an outfall, then that becomes susceptible to surge as the water surges up the box, which is a good point, which is a valid point. What I would add to that is, absent a box, the water is still coming in. But now you have a box to store some of that water, and some of it may come out where you have inlets. That happens. We see that in very low-lying areas right now with daylight flooding events during king tides. And we anticipate, based on the latest data we have in front of us, that this will continue, which is why we need infrastructure like this. The last 5 years, the Gulf waters temperature have set a record year upon year. This is important because the warmer the Gulf waters are, the stronger the storms that we experience will become. And so if this trend does not change, we're going to need infrastructure in a hurry. The good news with this project is that we have the funds. Usually our challenge is we don't have the funds. We don't have a defined project. The good news here is we have a contractor that the community trusts, that has a great track record of delivering projects. And we have an opportunity to move this project as fast as possible. On that note, I know other options were presented, potentially getting this work done even sooner. We've reviewed some of those options put forth, and we do not feel that they're feasible given the policy framework that we have to follow within the city, be it emergency powers, be it the requirement for contracting. We've heard about design build versus design bid build. And let me just touch base on that a little bit. This method, progressive design build, offers every opportunity that design bid build offers, meaning that we are going to begin with a design task. That design task is going to include an unprecedented amount of resources for public engagement at every level: concept, 30%, 60%, 90% design. Public engagement at that design to get the inputs. A lot of the questions we've heard and concerns from neighbors about this project are relative to the design. They're not relative to planning. And that's some of the messaging we've been trying to get out there. So getting the design started will actually start answering these questions. Once design is complete, as it goes with all design build projects, council will have a second stab at approving the GMP, or the construction cost for this. So in that sense, it's similar to design bid build. The key differences with a progressive design build are the following. One is accountability. You have one party that is accountable for the entire process. That really helps. The second is schedule. Progressive design builds are actually faster. And the reason they're faster is as substantial design is being completed, the builder, that is typically the prime, knows what equipment to order. Lead times are shorter. Starts working on means and methods of construction. And that allows for those schedules to be compressed a little bit as well. And the third is cost. For large projects, progressive design build is typically the preferred method because it can be a lower cost. So there will be public engagement. The public will get a chance to weigh in before this goes to construction, but the builder will have much better information in advance to stage the construction, to minimize impacts, and there will be impacts, and to plan the project, the overall project better. I'd like to highlight another point or advantage about this. During that public engagement, the community has the opportunity to provide feedback to the design builder what parameters they want for construction. Do they want to work through weekends? Do they want to work nights? Because that impacts schedule. These flexibilities are available in the contract. What we have provided in terms of anticipated schedule, what we've provided in terms of anticipated scope, is to minimize the impacts of disruption to businesses along Howard Avenue. And we've shared the best available information that we've had because we had the contractor with us when we met with the Seoul Business Alliance or the community as well. Finally, I want to close with our recommendation. So as the memo states in no uncertain terms, well, before I get to that, I'd like to just share that our staff are driven by public service. We've got a really, really good team at the Stormwater Engineering Department. We've got 21 engineers and technicians. This is a larger team than most large consulting firms have in their stormwater departments or divisions locally. We have a design engineer that was a consultant for decades before deciding he wanted to go into public service. He's our chief design engineer now. We have a stormwater manager that worked for SwiftMud. Her specialty is watershed management. She's leading our watershed management plan that council approved. So I just wanted to share this, that our staff comes from a place of public service to deliver the best possible infrastructure. And staff's recommendation is that to achieve the fastest and most effective way to bring flooding relief to Parkland Estates, Palmacia Pines, and associated drainage basin, we ask that on November 21st, we will bring to you a design task that includes public engagement for the South Howard Flood Relief Project. That's the way to get the project started. We ask that council approve that task and put us and Kimmons to work towards this project. At this point, I'll take any questions.
Councilmember Clendenin had his microphone on first.
Yes, sir. Can you put that project map that you had back on?
The route map?
Yes, please. Let me start by saying, I think some of the, what happened here is, correct me if I'm wrong, there hasn't been a route decided upon yet.
A final route has not been selected.
So somehow in the public information, it got out, there was an assumption that a final route had been determined, and I think that set off a firestorm that this was already set in stone, and then so people started getting, upset because they felt that there was a route had already been decided. So that's
Correct.
We're not there, right?
Correct. And let me clarify that.
Okay.
That this is the South Howard Flood Relief Project.
Right.
It is on the basis that South Howard is the most viable and feasible route.
Right.
How this project connects from
But how the
Parkland
water gets
Estates
there.
to South Howard is still open. That's part of the design process. And that design process will first consider how do we move water best? What are the impacts, both to trees, to businesses, to residences, all of that. That's a function and flexibility available to the designers through the process.
And initially, as this was conceived between Thea and, the existing infrastructure and the outfall, this mostly had to do with south of Swan, but now we're expanding the concept because of concerns between Kennedy Boulevard and Swan and the freshwater flooding that occurred. So this is an expanded scope?
So let me clarify that. It is not an expanded scope, but it does not preclude anything north of Swan. So this is all part of one watershed.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Correct.
So keep that in your hand, because I still have questions about that.
Sure.
So before you, it's my understanding, because I think this is part of this misconception as well, because because we live in Florida with a capital F, that people think about flooding during these storms as storm surge type of flooding, and when they talk about flood zones and whatnot. This area and other areas of the city that experience this flooding are basins, and it's my understanding that this watershed basin naturally pools water, and the only way to get water out of this basin is by man-made ways of getting it out. Without man-made intervention, this is basically a bowl. If I looked at a topographical map, this would be a bowl, right?
Correct. And but it is a system that's highest point is Palmacia Pines. There's a higher point beyond that, Kennedy as well. Then Parkland Estates, and then it kind of flows down. And you see that on Howard Avenue. So in essence, by upgrading the system at Parkland Estates and on South, it directly impacts and benefits Palmacia Pines as well through the existing infrastructure, which is a 36-inch pipe down Audubon. But I'd like to clarify that,
go ahead,
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So as part of the design process, the goal is to impact the watershed and to benefit the watershed. So if the analysis finds that we need to upgrade that 36-inch pipe to improve the drainage from Palmacia Pines to Parkland Estates to Bayshore, that is also part of the scope of the project. So it does not preclude it, it looks at the watershed.
Okay, so can you throw that other map back up there? Because maybe
Sure.
it's easier to just kind of see what our existing issues are and what you have on, because some of those things I don't understand on your map. So I can see actually I can read it better now, so it must have been clear. You know why? Because you didn't zoom in, so that I can actually see the streets. So I see Swan Avenue. Can you point out Howard? There it is. Okay, got it. Why? Well, first, let's go back. Let's go north. We have two major retention ponds. One was created relatively recently off Tampania, and then you've got the one by Memorial Hospital underneath the parking garage.
Correct.
What
AMI.
purposes do those two big retention ponds serve, and are they actually serving the intended purpose? Are they functional, and are they functioning the way they had anticipated being functional when they were constructed?
They're part of an insufficient drainage system. So what is unique about the AMI pond, for example, is while gravity-wise, the Audubon pipe is an overflow to that pond that flows down to Parkland Estates, and Swan and Audubon is kind of the bottom of the bowl where the water collects. The pump actually feeds and pumps west to the Cleveland Basin. The Cleveland Basin is a whole different conversation. We're currently in the process of developing the watershed master plan. We feel pretty good that the Cleveland Basin will be among the higher scoring projects. It's a huge project that goes from
Where's
this
the outfall of the Cleveland Basin?
Beach Park.
Wow.
And so it's all of those properties there that are impacted by the Cleveland Basin. So Clark and Swan and all of those areas where we see flooding, similar issues. So that's a 1950s system. And so all of these are insufficient systems relative to when they were built and how they function.
Okay, so, obviously, because I made the motion about the Bristol motion.
Sure.
And I understand some of the concerns, and I've spoken with the mayor and I've spoken with you about these things. Because I can't quite understand why it's not on the route consideration of using that wide corridor on Swan, because, you know, if we're trying to capture waters that's coming from the higher to lower, you've got this broad Swan Avenue, which, by the way, self-interest, I live on Swan, so, you know, it would be an impact on me to have this inconvenience on Swan, but why is it not being considered to at least have that route as a consideration of Swan to Howard? And so we've got that entire section of Howard, on the north section of Howard is not on the consideration map.
That's a good question, and that has to do with three things. One is impact, the other is existing utilities, and the third is relative to the other two routes. Again, back to impact, basically, how does the hydrology work out there? So because it's further north. So Swan is part of the three routes that we're going to look at. So it's not being precluded right now. It's Swan, Bristol, or Morrison. And so if it turns out that Swan is the route that is selected, the challenge with Swan is because it's got other utilities out already under Swan Avenue, we'll still need a full closure. We wouldn't be able to leave any lanes open. And this is without the design having started yet. But you're looking at a potential closure of Armenia, Howard, and Swan at the same time. And an accurate point was made earlier today. South of Swan, we don't have a great grid between McDill, Bayshore going north, all the way back to Platte or Swan. And so that could create significant impacts, not to mention there's a school out there and the Greek church as well. And there's going to be impacts for everyone. So that's why we're saying, let's go through the design process, let's go through engagement, and let the facts speak for themselves as part of this process.
It seems like the gap on Howard, as far as like not having the grid, is between Bristol and that one block south of Bristol, where you don't have a good way to get around that one block, right? Is that's an obstacle?
So it's not an obstacle in that down Audubon, you already have a connection between the area north of Swan and south of Swan.
Right.
So the pipe's got to be somewhere. There's already a pipe there.
And with this project, other than potentially expanding the diameter of the pipe from the antiquated collection system in north of Swan, is there anything else that you're considering or asking the contractor to look at for stormwater relief in that area between Swan and Kennedy?
Between Swan and Kennedy, we will take a look at it, and that's a function of the design again. So if the Audubon pipe is not sufficient to provide some relief north of Swan, then upgrades may be suggested, and that would be to that 36-inch pipe. Because the AMI pond system pumps out west.
Right.
And you can't dredge these ponds anymore because of the water table.
Water table, right.
And then on that same note, also, there was a mention about, ballpark, and we could build a pond there or something like that. For the watershed and the flood area that we're looking at, we require significant amounts of real estate to create a viable storage pond. And that still has an overflow challenge like the AMI pond does, which is why that Audubon pipe was put into the first place.
So, and this will be my last question, I'm moving on to the other council persons speak, but don't laugh at me. So with rainfall, the way this project is now conceived, what is the anticipated capacity as far as like rain per hour that it would be able to accommodate without a surge backing up into the system? So if you had a clean system from point A to all the way to the end to point Z, how much rain would it be able to absorb per hour without backing up and creating freshwater flooding in these neighborhoods?
So there's a mixed answer to that. And that's really because it's a function of design. The box culvert is modeled based on 100-year storm conditions.
Which we're getting every 3 years now.
The rest of the system is a function of the design process, with the goal being to design the largest possible system within the project scope.
Yeah, what I'm trying to avoid, and I'll shut up, what I'm trying to avoid is that I know people have a high expectation of this.
Correct.
And my concern is, what I'm seeing is that we're never going to meet folks' expectation, that that we're gonna build this out, which is gonna take 4 to 6 years, and on the 7th year, people are still gonna get flooded.
So very good point, and I'm thank you for your caution on that. So one, we anticipate this being done in 4 or lesser, depending on what the community wants from an impact standpoint. As far as that impact goes and managing expectations, on paper, this is not designed for a Category 5 or a Category 3 storm necessarily, the system itself. But when we look at the projects that we have completed, that went through these 2 storms in 12 days, those systems performed very well. All of the new projects that we had. So we know this works. I mean, Southeast Seminole Heights, for example, the properties along the river were impacted, but the properties that were not on the river, part of that system, did very well. So again, there's no direct answer to what storm condition until we really start design and what we can accomplish. The box is designed for a 100-year condition.
Thank you. And I appreciate you and staff and being very receptive and answering these questions, because I'm offline as well, not at this meeting, but getting background information, and I appreciate everything that you guys have been doing. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson, you had your microphone?
Yeah. Vic, I've always had a good relationship with you, and I think, and we work together well and through the storms and everything, and you've always been helpful going out to the meetings. And one of the messages that's been going through the neighbors is we need to trust engineers. I worked with a lot of engineers over the years, and I believe that engineers have an important role to play. However, not you, but this administration who's pushing this project also is the administration that pushed toilet to tap and a whole bunch of other projects that the community didn't want. And at farther analysis, you can do it. What I find in doing economic analysis or engineering analysis or anything financial analysis is everything is biased by the model that you put into it, right? So anyway, I wanted to ask you, the document that you have here that we're looking at, I've never seen this document before. Have you? Is this something that's on the website of the?
It is, yeah. So if you Google South Howard flood relief, we have documentation, timeline.
I went through just because some people are shaking their heads. I've looked through all the documents on the website, so you don't have to look at me like that. This is a very difficult thing because unfortunately the administration has stirred up trouble on this, just like they have many other projects in the city, and it's mainly to take away blame against them for not pushing this forward. When was this city council first briefed on this project?
This was in your quarterly report, June 2022, and there were several briefings.
In a very brief way. It was not a long presentation.
So we do the grade 8 presentations, and this is part of the grade 8.
So then I sat down with you and several neighborhood associations on October 17th. Wasn't that the first time that I was fully briefed and answered questions?
Actually, so we had one-on-one council briefings.
You and I had a phone call before that about a month or so.
And a Teams briefing with you on July 17th.
Yeah. So the point though is that, this is circulating the neighborhood that we and somehow I have been sitting on this project for 5 or 10 years. Would that be accurate based on the dates that you have there?
I don't think you've been in council that long. So.
I haven't been on council. I don't know that council was presented before, but the thing that I would like to do is just dispel the myth that somehow this council has been sitting on this project. At the most, you could say 2022, but that was approved at that time. The first time I sat down and had a full briefing, which I invited Mr. Adams to at his request, and I invited the other neighborhoods to, was on October 17th. And then after that, it was, when do you think was the first time that this city council could have approved this project? If everything had gone through, when would have been the first time this city council would approve this project?
So it would be at this design task. This is the first approval on November 21st that would be coming.
Would we have been able to, did we do something to stop you could you have put this before us in January or February this year? You would not have done that because I wasn't even briefed until October, correct?
Yeah. So the design build contractor was selected last December, but council was briefed at grade 8, March 20th.
When do you think
April
would have been the
24th,
first?
May 22nd.
Sorry, just to speed up the time, but when do you think would have been the first time that we would have been able to approve it? Is there any time between December and this coming November that we would have been able to approve it?
No, the design task is the first approval.
So the allegation that we did something to slow this down or that I did something to slow this down isn't true either, correct? And then how long, if, once we approve it, if we approve it in November, from beginning to end, how long will it take to finish the project?
We anticipate 4 years right now,
And what
but as
year-
I mentioned, it could be sooner.
When would it
depending.
start and what year would it be completed?
So it would start immediately, the design task upon approval. We should be able to get you a GMP and construction, which is your logical next step. Or actually, early works would be within like 8 to 10 months. And then major construction will begin after that.
What date did you say it would be done? Sorry, what year?
If we started this November, we would be done November of 29.
29, okay.
Sorry, 28.
28, 29, depending on also if you add some of those other things. So the neighborhood is concerned about problems now and in the next storm, and we also are concerned. I want to set that for the record. Some people have alleged that I'm not interested in solving the problem, but I absolutely am. But you have to understand that we deal with a city administration that we don't always agree with.
May I share a perspective on that?
But can I just say, the issue is that it's gonna take until 2029. And can you tell me where the construction will begin? Where's the point at the beginning of it?
I'll address that and the point I wanted to make.
I'm just asking these questions.
Absolutely,
Somebody else
and
can
I'm
ask
answering your previous question as well, because it's relevant. It will start downstream, so at the
It's starting at
outfall,
Bayshore, correct? Yes.
and we work up. But the thing about the benefits of the project, even though the whole project might take 4 years, the minute we start working upwards, every neighborhood that it connects to starts benefiting.
But you're starting at Bayshore, and so if it ends in 4 years, presumably it's gonna be 2 or 3 years at least. And if a big storm comes next year, this neighborhood still gets flooded.
Correct.
And so.
But
and
the
so
more
the
we
concern-
work upwards,
But the
the
concern
more-
we all have is what are we gonna do in the next 2 or 3 years?
Correct.
And so
And
there's
there
a
are no-
long-term and a short-term situation here that we need to address. Because even if we approve this, then we're gonna have a bunch of neighbors coming in again saying our houses are flooded, our lives are destroyed. And we have a responsibility to try to help that because now there's a situation facing. And has to this date, the city presented any short-term solutions that would prevent their neighborhoods from getting flooded before the end of 2028?
So if you look at my memo, there are no short-term solutions. There is this solution, which
So
is the
nothing,
most effective and fastest,
The
and
city
not
has
doing
no,
anything
the
is
city has
not
no
an option.
plan, just to be clear, the city has no plan. There's no proposal before city council to prevent flooding in the next 4 years. Even if we approve this, their houses are gonna get flooded, and the city has no plan for
That
that.
is not accurate. So that's the part that I wanted to clarify, Councilman. And that is, as we continue construction from Bayshore, working our way upwards, every single neighborhood that it hits starts benefiting. And if they're benefiting, that means Parkland ultimately benefits as well, and Palmacia Pines, because that water drains a little bit better.
Can I just give you some, sorry, I don't have to jump on it. Can I just ask you to put that on the overhead, please? This is the map that's on the front page of the website. And I just wanted, this is the map that is the first communication that everybody has who looks at this site. So can you tell me where Palmacia Pines is on this?
It's north of Swan.
Show me where it is on the map, please.
No, it's north of Swan.
But can you put your finger on it?
There.
It's off the picture. Most of it's off the picture, isn't it?
Yes.
So reasonably, isn't it true that until now, in any of the primary communication, nobody's mentioned Palmacia Pines until the last few days since this storm? And where are the pipes that go into Palmacia Pines?
Up Audubon, there are existing pipes. This is a
No, I mean
gravity
new pipes
system.
in this project. So this project, your department apparently has told Palmacia Pines that this is going to solve their problem.
Yes.
But I want to know specifically, where are the pipes that go into their neighborhood?
They come down Audubon from the AMI pond into Parkland Estates. Again, that is a function of design. This project, the South Howard flooding relief project is for the watershed. This is
I
a
under- I
route
under- I
based
under-
off of the
I understand
GMP
what you're
study.
talking about,
So
but the reality is
it's a
that,
gravity
the
system.
reality is that
Palmacia
Palmacia Pines got
Parkland,
flooded,
and other
and now for the
neighborhoods.
first time, you guys are promoting and telling everybody that Palmacia Pines is gonna be protected, and it appears from every indication that it's not, and you can provide some
What-
additional
May
information.
I ask what indication
It's
shows
not
that
even,
it
they're
does
not even on the map. It would have shown the entire watershed.
This project is based off of
Let me show you another.
the preliminary engineering study, and this shows Palmacia Pines and the watershed. This project impacts the watershed.
Okay, let me, can I give you another map, please?
Of course.
Thank you. Sorry to make you hand out these flyers, Vic.
No worries. Yeah, it's this district.
The thing is, we have issues going on in at least 10 different neighborhoods in South Tampa, and I'm meeting with them separately. Vic and I are meeting with them. But for some reason, in this particular neighborhood, we're getting all these slanderous emails, and I just want to set the record straight because, if somebody presents evidence that something I've said or believed is wrong, I'll change my mind. But I don't like being called a liar, and I don't like being accused of not approving something 10 years ago when I wasn't even on council. And as you just said, we didn't even slow this down. Can you explain to the public what this map shows?
I actually do not know what this map shows, and I'm not sure if this is in the final report or not.
So this comes from public records that weren't made public, but the light blue shows the 100-year, 24-hour, 5.5-inch flooding. We hit more than 100-year flooding recently. But what it shows is that after this project is completed, the light blue is the flooding in these neighborhoods.
So
That's what
I'd
the
like
map,
to
and there's a
clarify.
report that goes with this that was gotten
So,
through public.
May I clarify?
So what just quickly,
If-
what
if
it shows is
this
that even after all this money is spent, all these neighborhoods are still gonna flood, and between now and 4 years, they're also gonna flood.
So if this map is in the final JMT report, then it is part of that document and the study done as part of it.
But you see the concern
I
of the.
don't believe it is, and engineers sign and seal a document to say that that is the document that guides our decisions going forward.
Have we had
So if
any,
it's-
have we had any 100-year storms lately?
Yes.
And should we then, what was the most that we had in a 24-hour period in the last year?
300-year storm with Hurricane Milton.
But how many inches was that?
It was anywhere between 11 and a half to 16.
So this map, just for the people in Parkland Estates, this map shows what would happen at 5.5 inches, and what did you say, 11 and a half?
I can't attest to this map because.
But you see the concern of the community that we don't want to spend money on something that's not going to work. These are engineering documents that were circulated internally.
So let me clarify, there is no designing for hurricanes, but you can design the best possible system within the right-of-way and available resources that you can. That is our effort. If we design for hurricane conditions citywide, I don't think we'll ever be able to come up with the resources. But that is not a good reason not to move forward with well-thought-out and well-engineered projects.
But
That's what we're asking here.
all I've been asking for, and I think the community's asking for, is to separate design and build, and I'll get to that in a second. But
This
one of the
does separate design and build.
one of the other allegations we've had is that there's been lots of public input on this. This is a printout of the website. And it's been pointed out to me that, look, on the website, it shows that there are public meetings. Yes, there are public meetings, and there are notes of the public meetings. But why is it then on October 17th, 2023, when I had a meeting with the neighborhood leaders from 5 neighborhoods, that nobody except for Mr. Adams knew anything about this project if public meetings had happened?
So,
what public meetings happened before the route was chosen, and who was included in those public meetings?
thank you for the opportunity, because I have a document that talks about all of the public engagement. So if you give me about 5 minutes, I'll.
No, I don't need 5 minutes. I just, did you hold, somebody else can ask that question, but can you just tell me were there public meetings before the route was chosen?
The route is still not chosen.
I've got two documents.
It's a function of design, and design hasn't happened yet.
I've got a document here.
Council approves design.
I've got a document here from the public engagement person. It's a note to you in an email that says we need to be sure at the public meeting tonight to tell people that Bristol has already been chosen and the route is set. I've also got another document that that's from someone at Atkins Reales, and it says city anticipates that no further route analysis will be required. And I'm told there are other documents as well. Why is it that suddenly we're saying that the route is not set, and when there are lots of documents that say the route has been set?
We have never said otherwise. Communications internally are one thing. What we share publicly and with the public at these forums and at public meetings
But you see the
is what
concern.
counts. I am here telling you we haven't selected a route. We're going to bring you a design task that selects the route.
And you see the concern
So
that
there is no design yet.
that somehow the city believes that public input is telling people about the route that's already been selected.
I
So
can
until
s-
today, there hasn't been any other discussion about other routes. It's this route. Everybody's saying, why are the people on Howard mad
There's
and
been a
everything? Well,
discussion of over 19 routes. What I am telling you today is that the route selection is part of the design process. It begins with the design. The planning stage was the planning stage.
So why can we not, the problem with design build, first of all, is those projects always go millions of dollars over budget.
That is
sometimes
not
tens of
true.
millions of dollars,
That is
right?
not true.
We can go back, you don't think Hannah
I mean,
Avenue?
I will offer you this. Every major project, be it FIA, be it FDOT, be it the county, be it the city, prefers progressive design build
So
for
why
the
can't,
reasons I stated.
why can't, the only thing that I'm asking for is, I'm not disputing that we need to do something. I think we need to do something, but I think we need to do something before 4 years because the neighbors here need some kind of relief before 4 years.
I wish there were a short-term solution available, but this is a problem.
You don't think in Palmacia Pines, like underneath that doctor's office, somebody doesn't need to dredge that retention pond there? What about the canals in Palmacia Pines that have weeds and dirt in them? It looks like nobody's dredged or cleaned
we
any of
have
that.
been doing. I also heard earlier today that the JMT report spoke about profiling roadways. Right before the storm, we had noticed all of the community members north of Swan that we're going to do resurfacing. We are going to do resurfacing there, but then we had the storms. Part of the resurfacing is going to be reprofiling the roads and addressing the issues that were cited in the JMT report. Part of our early works is the other recommendations. That's why we've got a whole early works phase that includes moving utilities, repaving roadways that will be MOT routes as that project moves forward.
Why can't we separate design and public input from build?
It will delay the project by 24 months, potentially cost more, and we will
I
not
just don't
get the
believe- I
best
don't- I don't
possible.
be- I don't
Well,
believe
I'll
that.
share the reasons why since you asked me. So first, it takes 6 months to hire a consultant.
I'm not talking about hiring a different consultant. I'm saying hold a final point where you say to continue the existing project, you can call it design build if you want, but say to continue the project, you have to.
Let's call this design build, that's fine. It
I mean, I
doesn't
don't know
matter
why.
what we
I'm
call
gonna
it.
make a motion
We're going to get
sometime
you
in
a
the next.
design,
I'm gonna make a
pass.
motion sometime to get rid of all design builds because I think they waste money and they cause a lack of public
That's a
input.
prescriptive solution for
But-
something that we don't have evidence we
Let me
need.
ask you one more question before they cut me off. I have lots of other questions, but the last one is that we had a member of the public this morning that mentioned that to me in an email that he had wastewater in his house. And I sent him an email back and said, the wastewater people tell me that there was not a wastewater leak. I said, if you have evidence of it, let me know. And he took offense to that. I apologized to him in the hallway. And I said, if you have evidence of it, let me know. And he said, I already lost everything that had wastewater is gone already. I don't have proof of it. I know wastewater is not your department, but do you have evidence that wastewater leaked into that area?
After storms, we have both stormwater and wastewater leaks, especially if there's power outages. I can't go into specifics beyond that because it's not my department.
Okay.
All right, Councilmember Hurtak, Miranda, Vieira.
Thank you so much. This was my motion, and I just wanted to get an update of how things are going. And I'm coming at this from a completely different perspective. I was on the neighborhood board of Old Seminole Heights, and I'm sorry, but nobody else had a timer, so I don't think it's fair. I was on the board of Old Seminole Heights before I joined council, and we had the Southeast Seminole Heights Stormwater Improvement Project start. And I'm going to apologize right now. It was a shit show. Excuse my language, but that is what it was. It was from the beginning. And one of the things that was the worst part of it was we were not included in the design. And Ms. Scharf, I'm going to ask you to show that map. So the design that was chosen without any community input, and you can kind of see where the little green thing says Ignacio Aya Linear Park, that's Crest Avenue. That is just a street of homes. Just it. Nothing particular different from the street above it or the street below it. Why was it chosen? Honestly, I mean, it could have been other areas. It could have been other streets, but we as a community were not included in that process. The city has learned from that. But I want to tell you, this street, this lovely little street, a year, 1 full year that people could not access their homes with a car. Dirt streets, dirt everywhere. People had to park on the river and walk to their homes, park in neighbors' yards that were over. I mean, the entire street was closed. So to give you perspective of what was put in there, Ms. Scharf is about my height, which is, I'm 5 foot. So 2 of her.
I'm taller than that, by the way.
Yeah, she is taller. She is taller than me. But if you put another of her on top, and if you put her side to side, 10 foot by 10 foot culverts what went on that street, what went on Crest Avenue. I mean, we are talking huge, huge things. A lot of drama. We had water. We had also, including the stormwater vaults, we had water on both sides and wastewater on both sides because they couldn't connect because of the giantness of these culverts. The insult to injury for people on Crest, because there wasn't the information shared ahead of time, Crest never floods. It's a street that automatically angles to the river. So they were doubly angry because their street never flooded. They were never told about it. It was a lot of drama. But I will tell you, in this storm, in Milton, Southeast Seminole Heights, this is the river. Southeast Seminole Heights is on the other side of the interstate, considerably. It's on the other side of Nebraska. That was the actual target of the flooding. And from the beginning, nowhere in that area flooded the way that it had before. Incrementally, as it's done, it got better. I had someone brought up the 4-segment an idea, and I thought, that's really cool. I like that idea, but it can't work, and here's why. Say we divide it into 4 sections, the Parkland Estate section gets finished first. What happens to all that water? So we have to go backwards. But you have options. And this is something that you can talk about, the neighborhood can talk about. It's 4 years. Someone brought up the waste-to-energy facility being able to be redone in 100 days. That's because it was 24/7 work. It was planned out. It was 24/7. They had folks working every minute of every day. And could we do that? Yeah, we could.
Potentially, yeah.
We could. But that means the neighbors not sleeping. I mean, there's options. But you know what? It's possible. So don't, the world is your oyster. Y'all can decide that. That is not going to be our decision. That's going to be the neighborhoods and the design and the contractors. That is not our decision. Southeast Seminole Heights Stormwater Project closed Florida Avenue, 4 lanes of Florida Avenue for over 3 weeks. 4 lanes. And I'll tell you this right now, that was year and a half ago, we still don't have pavement on that because we're still fighting with FDOT on how the inlets are supposed to look. Still fighting. And it was an absolute, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. But we did what we could to manage traffic around it. That's all you can do. And you as neighbors, the neighbors who are going to be impacted, are going to have that zenness of, this is awful, but it's going to pass. This is awful, but it's going to pass. And again, I'm happy to talk to you, to the entire neighborhood offline about that. But we've learned, the project got so bad that we had to have the contractor come every 2 weeks to council, every 2 weeks, and talk about what they were doing. It got that bad. Councilman Maniscalco and I both did tours every other month. We went out and got a full tour of from X to Z. I mean, everything. So there are definite ways that council and the people who represent you can monitor and assist. But we have learned a lot from this project. And the only other thing I want to add is when we're talking about, and I don't disagree, I think we should, when everybody looks and sees what the best route is, I hate to say that things underground matter, but we opened a small section of Central Avenue in Hannah, which is a big intersection in Seminole Heights because Hannah's the only street that goes under the interstate. In that area, that's not a major street. So it's where everybody gets to Publix. There's no grocery store on the east side of the interstate. So, or on the west side, pardon. So when that was closed, it was closed for almost 2 months.
Yeah, like
because
8 weeks.
Once they opened it, oh, and there's an elementary school right there. So they had to time it in the summer. They had to be done before school started. But when they opened it, they found so much they weren't planning on finding. In terms of additional utilities that, people's power went out, not power, but people lost their internet multiple times. I mean, there was a lot that we were going through there. So I just want to say that we have done this. We have been through this. It is possible to do. And I believe that the neighborhoods, the businesses, and the contractors can all find a way to come together and make it work. That doesn't have to include us. I will also say that one of the things I think the city learned best was how to support small business. During the closure on Florida Avenue, that was in front of the Independent. That was in front of, major restaurants. And you know what we did? We did a campaign of the city. The mayor came out. I came out. We were doing photos of us eating and visiting the establishments, encouraging the neighbors to. And because the neighbors love our neighborhood establishments, we all went.
We had team meetings there.
Yeah, and it was, so it's not gonna be awesome. It's not gonna be great. There's gonna be parts that are just awful. And you just have to know that now and just know that it's gonna be bad. It's going to be bad. And then be pleasantly surprised when it's not as bad as you think it is. And that's what I think the Southeast Seminole Heights Stormwater was a really good lesson for how we go forward. And because of all the interaction that council had to have, the neighborhood associations had to have, that projects going forward can and will be better because we're not going to demand anything less. Or we're not going to accept anything less. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Councilwoman, because we have learned from Southeast Seminole Heights specifically, and the phasing plan that we had initially proposed, and is still available, like you said, if that's a community priorities conversation, is to mitigate these long runs of closure at any given time, and to kind of spread it over time and allow the contractor to exercise innovative means and methods as well. And to that end, Kimmons is great. They've done great work in urban environments in Tampa, so.
And I didn't mention the contractor, but I will say it wasn't Kimmons.
Before I go to Councilman Miranda real quick, I'll say regarding Southeast Seminole Heights, I think Councilmember Hurtak and I got the bulk of endless complaints. We did do the tours. The person that took me on the tour, I think, ended up going somewhere else. I don't know what the story was, but it was miserable. Crest was miserable. Florida was miserable. Some businesses went out of business. Not everybody survives it. And then later, when it's my turn to talk, I have some photos that I took back in 2019 when it was the Estrella, West Shore, Henderson, Dale Mabry project. So people can see the magnitude of it. Because one thing is seeing a sketch on road closures and stuff, but I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. Councilman Miranda, Councilman Vieira.
Thank you. I don't know, I'm lost in all this conversation. I've gone now from toilet to tap to hurricanes to 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees warmer in the Gulf, which is all true. And by the way, toilet to tap that I know of never killed anyone. Anyone that want to challenge me on that, let me know. From Lake Lanier to Occoquan Valley to California, Sacramento, they all use toilet to tap. The environmentalists wanted it over there. The environmentalists here did not want it. So be it. Not one living microbe lives inside a toilet to tap when it's cleaned out. However, we're talking about the devastation of your neighborhood, devastation of half of the city. It wasn't just your neighborhood. Around your neighborhood, you go to Davis Island, you go to Palmetto Beach, you go by Riverside, west of the river, and West Tampa. All those houses, every one of them flooded. However, half a block in, not one flood. So what we're looking at is something that works somewhere better than others. I think your presentation hits it right on the head, and I'm not an expert in this, because there is no expert in this from this council. None of us have experienced this. So what I'm saying is, Cleveland Avenue, when you talk about grading, you and I went to see something a year or two ago somewhere else. It so happened we were in Cleveland, and we stopped and looked at it. And the road is about 4 inches higher than the sidewalk. So what do you think floods? The houses don't flood, but the garages flood in normal rainstorm. But that's so small, we're not even looking at that. We're looking at fixing the problem we have now in the city, period. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about the Freeman administration. I don't want to talk about the Buckhorn administration. I don't want to talk about any administration. The Iorio administration, the Bill Pohl's administration. I worked with 5 mayors. They were all different, and they were all the same. They wanted to make the city better than when they found it. The personalities were different. The way they communicated was different. There's no doubt about that. Other than that, you're in charge of the system that you're here for, and you're doing an excellent job making the presentation. When you look at everything that is going on, the city of Tampa, guess what would have happened if that storm would have stayed a little north, like 15 or 20 miles? We wouldn't be talking here today. None of us would be here today, because the whole city would have been flooded. If what I saw happen, it would have happened in the whole city, no matter what system you had at one time. This is an anomaly. 6 or 7 storms have formed in the Gulf of Mexico. In my lifetime, I've only seen 2 or 3 every year, not 6 or 7. And it's now 2.5 degrees warmer than it was last year, and it's not going to get any cooler. We have abused nature for many years, and now nature can't take it no more. So this is what we're getting. However, you can put solar, you can take your grass off and put rocks, let the water fall through it, it goes right back where it came from. We're drinking the same water we drank 300 million years ago. Same water. And however, let me clear something, so let me go back to toilet to tap. There's a little city just east of us. They're doing a wonderful job. But they're pouring about 1 million gallons of treated water. Guess where? In the Green Swamp. And guess where the water comes from? The Hillsborough River, the Green Swamp. Now what are you going to tell me? The neighborhood is correct. If I could give you a short thing answer, I'm going to fix it now so you can have peace of mind for a year, 6 months, whatever. Because what you've gone through, no human being has gone through in the city of Tampa, along with the neighbors that I named all over the city. It's something that has happened that I have never seen in my 30 years of public service. Never. And it's because nature can't take it no more. That's what it comes to. I'm not forming excuses. We're trying to find a resolution, not a temporary one, because that temporary one will not work for what's coming. I agree. I want to help out. Anything I can do, I will. But this gentleman has said all the facts today. He is a professional of professionals. And he's not here to BS me, and I'm not talking about Barbara Streisand. I tell it just like it is. I've never known him to tell me a misnomer that it's not factual. He tells you yes and no and the reason why, and that's all you can ask, and that's what he's doing. So I just appreciate what you've said and what you've done. I want to march forward. I want to save not only this neighborhood, because when you save one, you save 3 or 4 in the same line that is needed. And when you save those, somewhere else the water can go and run off somewhere. And it's just a catastrophe that happened. I wish I had an answer as to why. I don't. Thank you very much for being who you are.
Thank you. Councilmember Vieira Henderson, and then I'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your presentation and your back and forth, Mr. Bidet. You know, for me, this issue is very simple, which is on this project, I probably first started talking to people about it maybe March or April of this year or so, if I'd have to guess, maybe April. Milton is a game changer with how I see this project. It is. We know this project is going to have to happen sooner or later. The way that I see it, staff is pushing to make it sooner, and that has a rational basis, a more than rational basis. When I talk to folks here who were affected, I have many feelings, but especially at Parkland Estates. One of my biggest feelings is there's a plan that we're told by staff, which we will rely upon, that can address these challenges. We can move forward with this, right? And not doing so, and in effect telling these folks that we're going to wait more and more and more time to address your concerns, to address your problems, et cetera, I think is an abandonment of just a core government responsibility to these folks in this neighborhood. That's the word that I think of. I think we all support this moving forward in one way or another. I want to get it done sooner rather than later. And by the way, we'll be talking about very briefly that investigative inquiry. That will also include South Tampa, by the way, in terms of the challenges that have happened in South Tampa, because every part is different. Every part is different. For me, you know, in public office, I always tell people, you're going to make somebody angry. So might as well make somebody angry for doing what you think is right and for doing what in your eyes is the right thing. The buck stops here. The buck stops here. And for something like this, we need to go forward for what we think is right. What I think is right is moving forward on this with vigor. We know that staff has been working on this issue for some time. We got briefed on it in 2022. I'll be honest with you, at this moment, I don't remember that. Whatever, that's fine. Obviously, I'll trust you, et cetera. You know, I rely upon your statement that this is the only viable solution that can move forward with a real solution for this community as opposed to short-term solutions. And maybe there are, by the way, things in the short term that we can do to help mitigate issues. But this neighborhood that is in Zone X, that is not in a flood zone, does not want tiny mitigation, as important as that is short term. They want long-term solutions. And like you said, Mr. Bidet, a plan that I'm 46, when I'm, God willing, 95 or 100, if I'm still here, this plan will, I know, right? This plan will still be benefiting people in this neighborhood. So I think that's very, very important. You know, we can bring this back to further discuss this in November. I strongly support that. From my understanding, this is something that is going to require a lot more community engagement, community input. From what I understand, we can continue to have council updates on this. We can continue to have community engagement as part of that. And by the way, this plan goes forward, you could bet your bottom dollar we're going to be hearing from people who are affected by this. And again, by the way, the buck stops here. Just like we heard from people after Milton who were affected by this adversely, we could hear from people on Howard. And again, that's what we signed up for, but sometimes you got to make a decision where you're going to get somebody angry at you. Might as well do it for what you think is right. That's what I always tell folks. So again, I think that by not going forward with vigor at this time, it would be, as I interpret it, an abandonment of just a basic government responsibility. You think of things like, for example, with police or with fire, you know, stormwater is just a basic bread and butter issue for local government. And again, to the extent that we do certain things, there's a lot of things, I always say this in life, that are black and white, then there's gray. This is great. There's no perfect way forward, right? But I think that if we move forward with a plan that begins the ball rolling now and puts a real accentuation on mitigating as much as we can those challenges, that folks have talked about here today, I think that that's the best that we can do. And that's certainly something that I'm willing to support. Again, will there be political blowback from that? Absolutely. But that's what we're in office to do, is to take the hits for doing the right thing, especially on those gray issues where we got to say, look, the greater good lies with this issue. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yay, it's my turn. Thank you, Vic, for your presentation. As a new council member and getting the enormous amount of communication from, the community regarding this particular topic, I just have to give you all some history that I came across because I just like doing that as I sit in this seat. And on October 18th, 1888, Mr. Bryant and a few community members came before this chamber from the scrub, and they asked for one thing that just blew me away. They asked for a water line into their community because they didn't have it. They also asked for just a few streets and some lights. So I did a little bit more research and I looked, and all of these amazing communities already had streets and water and lights. And the chair, Mr. McKnight, told him to put it in writing. At the time, it was just public comment. Public comments, you weren't required to put things in writing. You just came before the public. To the chair's surprise, Mr. Bryant came back in the chamber with a detailed outline of what the community was asking for. And they said they would take it into consideration, just like we have to do right now. I come from a perspective of trusting our staff. I just like doing that, and I will always do that. They are the experts. We have to listen to them and take that into consideration along with public comments, because that part is important. You all are fighting for your communities. There was a point where you were talking earlier and you were cut off that I really wanted to hear, and you had a document there, so I don't know if you feel like you did not get a chance to say that, because Councilman Carson was going fast and his passion is also greatly appreciated. What I will say is that I don't believe there are any short-term solutions to change what happened to your community. I wish that it didn't happen. I feel bad. One of the letters that I received was so, impassioned and directed toward me that maybe I wasn't sensitive enough. I can't imagine having experienced the flooding that happened in Parkland Estates, along with Forest Hills, along with Palmetto Beach. And it does become personal because so many people lost a lot of things. And it transcends class and economic, status. A lot of people lost things, people who are well off as well as people who are the working poor. And so for this process, the fact that you're saying we need to start in Bayshore, and it will benefit those other areas, I will trust that. I trust the progressive design build process. I don't believe there's a quick solution. I know that we're going to have to pray about the storms that come in between the 4 years in working to get this done. I actually do understand that. And so if the benefit starts at starting how you say we're starting, and the progressive design build is the best way, one of the things that's going to happen, and I know because of how these communities fight, is that as soon as those streets get chosen, y'all are going to come down here and somebody's not going to like that their street got picked. And I am going to listen, but I am going to stick with what the recommendation is. And I'm just saying that publicly right now. I'm saying it, and I know that you may have to be, somebody might end up having to trek their groceries a couple of blocks to get to their house and go through those pains, of the entire process. But I'm thinking about Mr. Bryant, who just asked for one line. That's who I'm thinking about. And I'm thinking about the person who sold their house in a flood zone to someone else, and is their house okay? I mean, it just expands my brain in that way. And so it is, I know it's going to be a challenge, and I appreciate the young people that came before us today, that said what they had to say, a 13 and a 14-year-old, because that is who I'm thinking about. And I said that in the video. When I became a council member, I'm always going to be thinking about the future generations. So it's going to hurt you while it's getting done, but it's for the future. And I'm going to stick with what the staff is recommending. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I wanted to show the photos from 2019, so I'll hand the gavel. It's on my phone. So. This shows you what.
Oh, microphone.
Mr. Chair, please hold your comments until you. Please hold your comments till you get to the microphone.
Guido Maniscalco, Tampa City Council. Do I need to give my address? So
you could have more stalkers.
And excuse my look.
What happened to you?
I was 50 pounds heavier here, so yeah, I know.
Who is that?
This was the guy I used to know. So this is, I believe this is Estrella. This is in 2019 when they were doing the stormwater project. Same contractor we're discussing. This is Kimmons. This is me standing by a stormwater vault. This is me, the stormwater vault is big. As Councilmember Hurtak said, it's like 10 foot by, it's the size of a small kid's bedroom. This is what the street looks like. This is the magnitude of the projects. This is what Howard Avenue is going to look like if Howard Avenue is chosen. You can golf cart, you can walk, but it's going to completely disrupt business. If you do it one block at a time or two, they're big. This is the magnitude of it. These are the stormwater vaults on the side of the street in people's driveways and right-of-way, and that's what's going to connect under the chosen route. So it's a sidewalk to sidewalk digging, 20, 30 feet, whatever it's going to be, to put these in. It was a, can I just talk from here? All right, and I don't want to turn my back to the audience. Let me just go back.
You're the chair.
You're more attractive from that backside.
Another comedian looking for
I'll do anything to keep the gavel.
All right. No, but I want to be respectful to the audience. I don't want to turn my back to anybody. So, and I've told this story, and I'll tell it again. I've been on council going on 10 years. And in 2015, I know I was 30 years old, now I'm 40. And, the previous administration proposed this stormwater capital improvement assessment and maintenance assessment, which was a property tax increase. And it was one of the toughest votes I've ever had to take. And I remember it drove me crazy. Just like this last month, this South Howard flooding relief, I've been to people's houses, I've met with them in the community, I've helped them get the debris picked up, whatever I can do. It's gotten so bad because I obsess with work. My wife finally took my work phone away and said, take a break, because it was emails and phone calls. It's like Guido the complaint department. But I'm very passionate about trying to do the right thing for the community. And going back to 2015, 2016, the previous administration proposed this assessment, and I went back and forth trying to look at every option that I could before saying yes to raising people's taxes. I pitched everything to the mayor personally, and everything was no. So when the vote came up, I voted against it, and I essentially killed it. All of a sudden, there was new motivation from that administration. They came up with $20 million in community investment tax money to make it cheaper, to lessen the burden on the taxpayer. So overall, this project with interest will save taxpayers between $30 and $40 million. The stormwater capital improvement passed, I want to say September 1st, 2016 or October 1st. It was a dark and stormy night. And when you talk about political blowback, I heard it from all angles. However, because of that, we've been able to do the Henderson and Del Mabry flooding that I showed you there, Estrella going to West Shore. Same project, same contractor that we're talking about now. Because of that, Rome and Kennedy and the Cypress Street outfall, that's another thing. That flooded terribly in 2015. And then, as was mentioned with Seminole Heights, that was probably the worst of it, because I'm very close to Seminole Heights. I don't live there, but I know a lot of people. Businesses closed, businesses were deeply affected. On top of that, you had COVID, so the timing couldn't have been worse. People were feeling hit after hit after hit. And I got so many complaints. Councilmember Hurtak, we appointed her to the board, then she got elected. And it's, because she lives there, and I'm there all the time. The complaints were endless to my office. We were there at people's houses. I have friends that live there. I would drive down there. I would park blocks away and walk down through the neighborhood. Complaint after complaint after complaint. I remember one person, I couldn't say anything right. She just wanted to yell, and it's like, it was, everything is okay now, but, for months, it's like, when you get yelled at 24/7, Mr. B-Day, you take a lot of hits.
Oh my gosh.
People ask me, what do you do for a living? And I avoid saying city council. I say I get yelled at for a living. Oh, what does that mean? And I explain to them. But, we need to do something with Parkland Estates, with Palmacia, Pines north of there, with, I went to school there. I tell people I went to the Greek school. It was Greek. Now it's the church. But I went there. I've been getting coffee in that neighborhood since high school. I had my first date in that neighborhood when I was 13 years old. No, I'm not going to. We went to the movies when it was AMC down the street in Hyde Park. I have a lot of deep connections to that neighborhood. Burns Restaurant, Whaley's Market. I'm going back. Many people may not even know. We're going back to the 90s. But my concern is this. I want to do something, that is impactful and meaningful. Are we going to solve all the flooding problems? No. Councilmember Carlson brought up a lot of interesting points and concerns. My issue is we move forward and you say you have to say yes in order for us to go to a design build or design public input, and then we'll select the route. Why can't we select the route that, my concern is, why does it have to impact Howard? I was looking at the map that you put up, and it was number 3. And I looked at it closely, and it said Morrison, going across Morrison to Albany. Why can't we do that? Why Albany is a narrower residential street? You can do what you did with Estrella, even though it was terrible, it worked. Kimmons was able to make it work with the community. Why can't we have something more definitive before we say yes? I don't want to say yes to something and then we lose control. Well, because I'm looking at these documents and it says, the city anticipates that no further route analysis will be required. Or we need to talk about why Bristol was chosen and make clear that that route is set. Those sentences there concern me. I want to move forward, but when they've already made their mind, all we have to do is convince council to say yes. I've been doing politics long enough, and I've learned not to trust people. No offense to anybody, but when you get burned repeatedly, you're suspicious of everybody. Sure. So, what guarantees do we have? You say, council, it's got to come before you. It's got to come before you. But then the legal department gets up and says, y'all approved the contract signed. This could go to the courts and a lawsuit, and well, the ship has sailed. That's what I want to know is what safety nets do we have? Because I'm not going to have blood on my hands, philosophically, with people moving out of their neighborhoods, this project not getting done, putting businesses out of business. You have a lot of people that are employed in that area. I just want to make sure that we do the right thing.
Sure.
And I'll leave with, I'll end with this. When you go into people's homes that have lost everything, and they have their life on the curb, and they're saying, can the city come and pick I can't imagine that. The suffering, and then the children, the families, the trauma. I have trouble enough sleeping thinking about work. I can only imagine people terrified, like it's going to rain. Are we going to wake up in the dark without power and water up to our knees? We have to do something. You're a good person. We have a great team, but I want to do the right thing that's least impactful.
Sure.
My thing is, I don't want to hurt people. Yes, these are tough political decisions, but people have suffered. This is awful. Again, I've known this neighborhood since I was a kid. So that's it.
Well, I thank you, and first thank you for sharing some of your past there. Those nice stories there. So, So on the routes, why not the Albany route? Why not the Georgia, Mississippi route, or some of the other routes that were shown? That was why we hired JMT to kind of put together a matrix of different factors. Those factors began with moving water first, but also looked at impacts to trees, the available width of the right-of-way. So like you said, it's a narrow street. The challenge with a narrow street and a very big a box culvert is that we either have to do eminent domain or buy property or hope that everyone along that property gets or provides an easement for a box that size, which might go through pools and backyards and things like that, hopefully backyards and not front yards, which will then impact wastewater connections, which are typically in the backyards. The other thing with all of these routes was unfortunate but true, the box under CSX was a driving factor. The CSX coordination relative to schedule is a driving factor. And then the third driving factor is, can it connect to an outfall on Bayshore ultimately? Because that can be very disruptive as well. Today, our project begins at Bayshore, should council move it forward, and we'll see about an 8-week impact on Bayshore, 8 to 10 weeks, whatever that is, not more than that. To build a whole box at Bayshore, we're looking at a much, much bigger impact. And even through this impact, we still have 2 lanes going either direction. So there's still access. But if we had to construct, there would be no access. It'd be very difficult to have access because you're actually building that outfall to Bayshore. So it's all of these considerations. And let me just touch upon trees a little bit more. Huge impacts to grand trees along.
Okay.
So, huge impact to grand trees along the Albany and Georgia routes. And then finally, the 90-degree turns that are required. Water does not like to make 90-degree turns. It's just really hard. The system design is a little bit challenged and it doesn't work as well. So it's all these factors which is why my memo begins with what is most viable. And that's the gist of it. And then an interesting story on the Burns cellar and the wine. So one of the reasons, not the only reason, but among other reasons, Kimmons was selected over the other 2 contractors was their attention to detail. During their presentation, one of the examples they used to protect businesses was recognition of the wine cellar under Burns and talking about managing vibration and managing access through that segment. So we feel like we have a contractor that will be sensitive to a lot of these needs, but there is, to Councilwoman Hurtak's point, there is no scenario of no impact. There will be impact.
Mr. Vita, is it a question of money if we find an alternate? And I say that because we just renewed the CIT for another 15 years. I told you my story about getting more money that, there was no other option back then until I said no, and then $20 million appeared. If it's a matter of money, I'm happy to support, if the project costs a little bit more to be less impactful, it's not just the homeowners, it's how many people are employed throughout that corridor. Because I come from a family of small businesses. If this was their business, I would tell them, sell your property. No, they wouldn't sell, they rent. Move out and go somewhere else. Yeah, we survived COVID, but this is, as Councilmember Vieira told me, he goes, this hurricane is gonna make COVID look like a cakewalk, and COVID was miserable. So, again, if it's a matter of money, if you say we can do this, we can go down Swan, if we can do, money, we can figure it out. If it's about lift stations, pump stations, whatever it is, let me know, because I'm happy to entertain and support. If it's more expensive, it's more expensive. But if we do the right thing, we do the right thing. So, Councilmember Clendenin, and I don't know who else, and then we'll wrap it up.
So, a couple of things. One, everybody saw your picture, so nobody believes that you had a date back then. So that's just promise those.
I did.
Wow.
And the date's mother got impacted by this flooding. We broke up 25 years ago, but it all
There we
ties
go.
into,
See,
my
it all-
life
it all-
ties into this
it all-
neighborhood,
it all-
and I live in West Tampa.
It all circles around.
So,
I mean, I don't know if you guys are listening, but unless there's some other magic formula that I'm not hearing, what Mr. Beatty has told us, and it seems reasonable, is because of the infrastructure, that this outflow on Howard is, I mean, that's where we're starting. I mean, that's just where we're starting. I mean, that's where we're gonna start. I mean, it's not like we're gonna take this thing to Beach Park, or we're gonna take this thing to wherever. It's going, that last segment is going to be the Howard Bayshore segment. And if we just start off on that assumption that this is where this water is going to go, because guess what? That's where water goes. It's flowing downhill, and that's downhill. We have the infrastructure there in place. I appreciate, because some of that first briefings that I got on this project was the street improvements that you're proposing for Howard, which while that section of Howard between, say, the Crosstown and Bayshore will have some tremendous impacts, I think ultimately the impacts, because of the tremendous sidewalk, landscape, lighting improvements, will mitigate the impact that this project will have on that segment. So, and I think quality, for the businesses, will improve the businesses, improve their viability, and also improve the quality of life of the people that live in that general vicinity. The portions, there's a couple of things that I'm still concerned about. What I'm hearing is that you initially steered clear of that Swan Howard, and again, there's less right turns when you do that. I mean, you've literally basically taken like 3 right turns and made it into one. Is that infrastructure, which is money, and I think you heard from the chairman, if we're just talking about money to make it, a more reasonable, less impactful project, let's figure that out. Sure. If that's what works and that's what makes sense, let's figure that out. We'll try to find it. And I just keep going back to that. It just makes sense to me. And I think through staging, there are a couple of options. There's that one little problem area between Bristol and, and just that 1 block south of Bristol on Howard that's difficult to get around because of the configurations, and probably we've given away property in the past and they've built on it. We don't have any throughways in there anymore. So we have that one little logistical area, but everything else, because we can go north and around, behind the the street north of CVS up there to get around that way if we had to. There's other options of circling around. The only things I'm concerned about is we've spent a lot of time talking about this project, and I think I want to reiterate what Councilman Carlson has hit on, and that is this, because there's a lot of information out there somehow that this council has been lax, and we've ignored this area from one Parkland and then also Swan to Kennedy. There has not been any project. This project really originally was not conceived for this. And I want to make sure that what we're doing, if we have to expand the scope and dip further into stormwater, whatever we have to do, or pursue more grants to make sure that this neighborhood is taken care of, that occurs. And I also want to make sure that we're not just talking about this. We heard from the public this morning. There was areas in Palmacia further south of this, a couple of neighborhoods, making sure. And I know your office is doing this, but for people that are listening to this, because we've had a lot of discussion about just this, knowing that we've had some pretty devastating freshwater flooding around, we're not even talking about surge flooding, we're talking about freshwater flooding around the city of Tampa, that we have a plan. And if some of this may be just as simple as making sure that we do those ditches, and that we have a regular schedule, that maybe this has highlighted some areas that we could improve upon. But that we have a plan for you all that are out there listening to this that experience freshwater flooding, that the city is going to respond to that, and we're going to look in to find out what the causes of those in those pocket neighborhoods, and that we're not ignoring you, that this is just what we're talking about today, but the city staff is on top of it. We're going to pursue that. You guys are going to figure out why it flooded, if we have to have a project, or maybe it's just maintenance. We talked about milling roads. We were talking about these roads being up high, and so the sewer system was here, and we keep layering roads, and Chairman Maniscalco and I were talking about it, that eventually you've got a road that you've repaved 7 times over the last 100 years, and your inlet is down here, and you've only got a sliver of space for water to get through. So if it's as simple as milling down back those roads and reclaiming that, maybe some of those areas, that's what is the solution. So I'm hoping that when we're going to do that SWOT analysis, you guys are going to come back. I hope that your department comes back with, we've identified these areas, we've identified these solutions. If it's backup generators for Forest Hills, if it's, whatever those things are that, can solve these problems, that you guys come forward to us to tell us, one, what the problems were that we've observed, what neighborhoods we've observed that we had problems that we can find a solution for, what the solutions are, how much it's going to cost, and where we're going to get the money. Thank you.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. I'll just touch upon real quick. Council approved a $5 million watershed management plan. That's our stormwater plan. That's going to inform the next round of capital projects. That's what it does. That work is underway. I can't thank this council enough for that. On November 18th, we will hold a multi-neighborhood meeting, if I'm not mistaken, for the South Howard project. If I'm not mistaken, the communications are out already on that. So we will do that and we'll continue to engage. And then on January 25th or 23rd, I'm not sure, Councilman Vieira had made a motion for us to come back with short-term solutions relative to stormwater and things like that. That's when we will have better information on generators, what we can do in the short term. A point was made earlier today about maintenance, and that is critical. We do have a maintenance assessment, the service assessment, but it needs to be updated relative to our needs and costs today. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Hurtak, then we'll close out with Councilmember Carlson, and then Councilmember Miranda will be the closer. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I just wanted, I'm glad you mentioned the watershed mitigation plan, because that was what I was going to bring up, that we had, our staff is already working on the next iteration. This is something that we know we've needed to take care of, and I'm happy to say, well, I'm not happy because I'm sorry for the other cities, but our city has been so far and ahead of any other city in the state on really looking at this beforehand. We know we're a city that will have this kind of impact, and Milton and Helene just proved it to us that we were right to get started. If we could have started 20 years before that, great, but we are where we are, and we're better off than we were. And I do want to mention that the milling, a lot of that is alleys. A lot of that is alleys, because alleys are where stormwater goes in a lot of communities. And I had talked to you about even creating a, when we fix these alleys and lower and mill them, that becoming another way that people can use them for recreation, which is a huge issue in the summer, because alleys are generally shaded and treed. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. And I talked to you about being able to use stormwater funds for that work. We're fixing the alleys and, adding maybe a little parks money on top of that to help to make it a more usable space. So if we're sort of a 2-for-1. But the reason I turned on my mic is I definitely am concerned about businesses and making sure we do whatever we can to mitigate any of the impacts. But these are week or month impacts, 1 or 2 months, not year impacts. And what we're gonna have to do is find a way to have more parking somewhere, to have ways that we encourage people to come to Howard Avenue, to use these businesses. And I know the neighbors have talked about that's going to be part of their focus, is when that block is impacted, that's where they're going to give their funds, and that's where they're going to visit. So I do want people to understand that a 4-year project does not mean 4 years of not having access to Howard Avenue. Once the Howard Avenue section is done, which will probably be honestly, looking at any of those pathways, the shortest part and the least impactful part, that we will be able to visit those businesses. And I think that we learned so much from Southeast Seminole Heights about what we can do for small businesses to help, that there's always going to be more things that we can learn here. And I'm just saying, I'm committed to working on that. I'm committed to driving down and patronizing those businesses personally and encouraging others in the community to do so, because that's the way that we get through these types of projects.
Councilmember Carlson, and then Miranda will close us out.
First, I want to say to the folks here and to the ones watching online, I've told everybody publicly and privately, I'm 100% committed to finding a solution. I don't like the solution that's on the table. And the majority of people in this neighborhood and others don't like this solution. The conflict has come when, for some reason, people are battling that we shouldn't open it to additional ideas. Vic, if you come back with a proposal, it can't be a regular design build contract. There's got to be a process where the public is really engaged in looking at it and giving input into it. And I used to do public input for a living, and you do, when you want to sell a project, like it says in all these documents, you say, okay, what color do you want it to be, and what corner do you want us to start on first? Public involvement, public engagement is where you say, what's your input on this route? What's the input on the thing overall? And clearly there was not real public input done before last year or before early this year. There were meetings since then, but not real big public meetings, just some neighborhood meetings. I'm disappointed, by the way, the mayor and her political advisor, as I understand, went to meet with a small group, but not with the larger group in Parkland Estates or any of the other neighborhoods. I would welcome a meeting of everyone once you start the public engagement process. The communication on this has been terrible. You have the best public engagement person, Michelle Robinson. You have the best public engagement person in the region. She absolutely knows how to do this. But you guys have to work with her, right, to make sure that this works. It has to be real public engagement, real public input. You talked about for the public, my skepticism is, and Guido kind of alluded to, my skepticism is this administration has presented things to us that we later found out was completely false. And so, yes, we trust engineers, but when the city presents to us, for example, that we must spend $6 billion on a toilet tap project or we're going to run out of water, and we prove to them that it's false, and they finally admit that it's false, and I can go over and over and give you hundreds of examples. When an administration has a track record of presenting things that don't build trust with the community and don't build trust with council, it's very frustrating for us. And what happens is that they present something to us and they get us to prove it, and they say, oh, you got another bite of the apple, you got another bite of the apple. And then when it comes back to us, they say, oh, you already approved it. You can't do anything else going forward. And so when they say, oh, you're going to have a chance to vote on it again, we don't trust them because, at least I don't trust them, because they've done this before and said, oh, you already approved it. The public has got to have input into the process and the route. It sounded like from your statements after you and I talked that the route's already set. and we know from the documents it looks like it's set. You absolutely have to have it open, and then we need to go back to, one time you told me 14, 19, whatever the routes are, whatever the solutions are, we have to open all that up. Also, in the public outreach, it's not just important to understand the routes and everything. You've also got to talk to the different neighborhoods. We had historic Hyde Park here this morning. We have others that are concerned. Not everybody showed up today because they figured this is just a regular update. They can watch it on TV. But the next time we're going to have a lot more people. And one of the concerns businesses have already said is that if this goes down Howard, they're going to file a lawsuit. Now, if it goes down Swan, somebody might file a lawsuit too. But if you don't do proper public engagement and communication, which has been horrible to date, we're almost definitely going to get lawsuits. And why should the community care about a lawsuit? Because it's going to delay it by a year or two. And so instead, if we do proper public engagement, we can prevent that on this end. I've got a motion I'm going to make later about short-term solutions, and I really think what you think might be smaller things, we need to at least package all that together and explain to the public that we are doing things. Because even though there are people here that have heard today that this council has only been looking at this for a year or less, that we haven't been looking at it for 10 years and we haven't delayed it, when the next storm hits and the neighborhood gets flooded, they're going to come ask us, why didn't you stop this from happening? And you just said you can't really stop it from happening in the next 4 years. You might a little in the 3 or 4, but in the next couple years at least, everybody might get flooded again. They're going to go through all the renovation. They might get flooded. And I feel an obligation to try to prevent that. And I think we ought to continue to look at solutions on that. And the last thing is that, we all agree to disagree sometime. My job outside of this has been trying to build consensus in community, and especially on divisive issues. This is the most divisive issue. This is more divisive than toilet tap. It's the most divisive issue that I've seen, and I don't know why. Like I said, other neighborhoods in South Tampa and other places have flooded, and they're not as divisive as this. And I would just ask everybody, I've always been open to meeting with anybody. I've walked a neighborhood, I've sat in people's houses. I'm happy to meet with anybody to talk about anything. I just want everybody to be open to a transparent process that engages the public properly so that we can get the right solution. I do not want to approve, look at the maps, and these maps may no longer be valid, as you said, but I don't want to approve something. This mayor won't be here when this project is done. I don't want to approve something that a few years from now, people come back and say, why did you waste all that money and we're still getting flooded? Thank you.
Councilman Miranda's going to.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say one thing. I think Ms. Hurtak was going to speak of the same thing you were, and you brought it up about parking. We have a lot of parking spaces in downtown in the evenings. We have other transportation methods that we could use. Possibly, we could come up with some plan to keep those parking spots open and have a transfer shuttle between us and them, and this is solved for much less money than you're going to do wasting on anything. It'll be great to help the people who help us. That's the business, to create the taxes that keeps the government running. However, I think we can do that if the city can waive the parking fees and because of the impact that it's doing to help the city. So I think those things are possible. I saw a bus the other day, belongs to, I'm not going to say who in the city, but it's a brand new bus. It sits about 60 people. But I'm sure there's other buses that sit 12, 15, and 18 that the police department may have. You may borrow that. You can do that and carry 20 or 30, and I'm not going to be the driver. Let me just get that out of the way. I don't drink, but I also don't drive very well. So what I'm saying is that we can do those things, I believe, and make it work if we work together with the businesses and with the city to say this is 150 spaces or whatever you have, we can use these. And, I think it could work, I really do. So I think that just throwing in the table, maybe you can look into it with speaking to the young lady who runs the operation to tell you how many spaces are empty. They know that now, they know that already.
We're open to all kinds of creative solutions, as is the contractor, and so.
Mr. Bede, did you say that on November 18th you have a multi-neighborhood meeting? Is that what I heard?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that including Parkland, because it's like Parkland South, Parkland North, it's
all the neighborhoods in this watershed,
a
so,
community
yeah,
divided.
Bayshore Beautiful, New Suburb Beautiful, all of them.
Where and what time is it?
That's a great question. I don't have that information, but can I get that to you?
us so
Yes,
we
absolutely.
can even put it out?
Yeah.
Anything else? Sir?
Bayshore Baptist Church.
Okay.
And
6 o'clock, Bayshore Baptist Church, November 18th.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very, very briefly, a couple things, which is, we talk about Swan or different directions. If we were to do it there, then we'd have the challenges of Swan, and we'd be right back to where we are right now. Right back, because you think Swan's going to go, oh, yeah, bring it on. That's great. No, you're still going to have the same challenges. My message is, again, that Milton, for me, changed a lot of things in terms of how I see things. It did. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. It changed me in terms of the things that I've seen. I've been, when it comes to my area, North Tampa, I've been relentless in working with people out there, et cetera, because seeing the things that I've seen, just, it's changed me. And I don't want to, having seen those things, right, pass by an opportunity like this to improve things in the future. So again, we go down Swan, we go down wherever. Again, you're going to have challenges. You're going to take somebody off. That's the nature of the buck stopping right here.
Thank you very much. That concludes this presentation. Thank you, Mr. Bede. Thank you to everybody that spoke this morning and who's watching. All right, we're going to go to item 75. There's a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to use it.
And I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Does this come back to us in November? Do we need a motion on it?
It's going to be on the agenda.
Okay, good. So we don't have to, okay. sir. We ready? There we go. Good afternoon, Council. David Ingram, Executive Director of the Tampa Convention Center.
That's right.
Really? That was a serious?
Wow, I was like,
That was a serious
we
question?
met like, we had a conversation last week. I'm glad I was so memorable for you.
David, I apologize.
You know, honestly, before this body,
You're
it's
dressed
good
up.
not to be recognized.
You know, some days it's better to be under the radar.
Ask Abby.
You have on a tie. You threw me off.
The tie, I can take it off if you'd
No,
like.
it's fine.
Go
I'm
ahead.
here, I'm here today to give an overview of our digital advertising contract that was issued last month.
Yeah.
Just to give you a quick background, we currently have an existing sign package that's been in the building for a little over 10 years. It's made up of 15 locations that have monitors in it that can basically put up digital advertising. It's a little old, a little outdated. We also have our in-house AV provider, Encore, is the one that managed it for us. Their primary goal and focus in the center is actually renting AV equipment to our clients, not necessarily managing a digital network. That can be showed by the revenues that they've captured. They're well less than 5% that they bring in of their overall revenue for the year. So what we decided to do is, after taking into consideration the upgrade for technology, the need for us to have a sole person selling and managing the signage to increase revenue, and to basically provide an updated customer experience for us at the center, we wanted to issue an RFP that captured all those things. So from the time frame perspective, in August of 23, we issued our RFP to meet all those things. We had 3 bids that we received. Of those 3 bids, they were all qualified and moved on to our procurement committee back in December of 23. Expo Digital was the one that actually won the award recommendation based on their qualifications, their responsiveness, as well as they received the highest score from that procurement committee. During that time, after that, what we did is we negotiated a contract through purchasing, legal reviewed it, and finance reviewed it as well. It came back to City Council in September of 2024 to be approved for us to go ahead. It's a 3-year contract with 2 additional optional years for renewal. So looking at it overall, if it does move forward, it's a total 5-year program. At the end of the month of September into October 2024, we did start our installation process. Phase 1, which is going to be all the digital signage over our exhibit hall, will be completed. And actually, I have really good news.
It's beautiful.
This is the picture of the one that's currently up and running at over the west and central hall. It's very dynamic. You get a huge impact when you walk up those stairs into an entrance unit. As of this morning, the 2 over the east hall and the west hall are completed. They're actually installed. Programming will be finishing in about a week to week and a half, so they'll be up and running before the deadline of December, which is great news for us.
So will they be lit for will they be lit for next week for the NLC?
Put me on the spot. Wow.
Keep going.
We are trying our best. Realistically, what it comes down to is with, we have 3 events this weekend. We have Flutog, we have Immortal Seats, and we also have the Tattoo Show. So we're trying to make sure that we don't disrupt them. So programming, we should be able to do it behind the scenes, but you never know what happens with technology. You may still need to get out a lift and adjust some things. So fingers crossed, the 2 exterior ones for east and west will be done, but we definitely have the one dead center that's up and running. That's been up and running since IBEX. So it's a really, you have to come out and see it. It's
Well, I'll come out. That's why I asked this.
got it, because it's a total change for the feel of the center. So a couple of the objectives that we wanted to have in this contract is we wanted to make sure that we increased our digital footprint for the center. We wanted to upscale our services for our clients. But most importantly, we also wanted to look at additional revenue sources that we potentially could get from this display. The key component to that is having one person do it and have that overall feel of being able to have them on site that's dedicated to sell to local businesses, to our clients, to have advertising. If there's any customer service relation issues, they're there to take care of. And the final component that is not on the slide, but I wanted to add, is part of the contract is they're required to maintain, operate, repair, and replace the signage. So having somebody on site allows them to do that, and takes the burden off of us at the center and in the city to make sure that it's taken care of. As we all talked, this is a revenue share contract. So realistically, what it breaks down to is 45% of the gross sales of the permanent signs comes back to the center. 25% of the gross sales of any temporary or mobile signs that they rent to our clients. And I really want to throw that in there for temporary mobile. It's not that they're going outside. If you've all been to a convention before, they have those large meter boards that are all usually paper and take up a lot of space. Our clients now have the ability to rent digital ones that can be moved around and have that same information. So we'll get 25% of that.
We don't have a great structure or past history for having a detailed information on revenue. So we did a really ultra conservative projections for the first 3 years of the contract. It starts out as year one at about 200,000, and then it moves up by the time year 3 comes around to 285,000 that we're projecting. Again, very conservative. The revenue share component for the centers will be $90,000 for the first year, and that'll migrate up to about over 128,000 for year 3. For year 4 and 5, we did not project out because we wanted to make sure we had a good history before we started moving forward on that. The other component is, as it relates to this is all sales. So if sales go up, revenues go up, our commission goes up. If they go down, we're still going down at that point in time. The other key component for the contract is our capital contributions. Expo Digital will actually do a one-time $10,000 cash contribution for capital, but more importantly, they're going to invest about $651,000 in hardware and software to create the digital sign package that's going to be in the center. The nice thing about that, and I know there's an added in here that says anywhere between 11 to 15 signs. That's the minimum that we're looking at to spend for that amount of money. What it really comes down to is when we find the best locations for it, locations dictate size, size dictates cost. Cost will ultimately come out of that $651,000. But the nice thing is that's not coming out of us. That's actually truly from Expo Digital as they're part of their capital contribution. And last but not least, we have the annual marketing fund that they're willing to contribute $10,000 to annually. What that comes down to is it's $10,000 that we get. We have to use it within the year for the year. We can't roll it over, so it helps with our marketing campaign. If you can see the old sign on there, what I really like to point out before, again, it's completely different when you're in person, but the old sign, that's what they look like. The new sign is all digital. It is truly amazing when you come out and see it. The graphics that are on there, we truly now have the port invasion for Gasparilla, so it'll be really dynamic when they come in. That's my presentation. I'm here for any questions.
Council. Ms. Hurtek, Councilwoman Hurtek.
Thank you. I'm just curious what you plan on doing with the money you get. Are you folding that back in? Do you have a particular, so our contributions, what is your plan?
So the revenue contributions
Yeah.
that we're gonna get, that actually helps run our operating subsidies.
Okay.
So since we don't come back to the general fund, we try to make it as a one-for-one expense.
Sure.
So if that $100,000 comes back in, that allows us to actually cover our expenses for the center.
Yeah,
So
and
that
you
can
have-
cover anything from labor to updates to maintenance repairs. It's all encompassing. There's not a defined 90,000 goings right to this.
Okay, so you don't have anything you want to focus on.
Nope.
But this is a great way to pay for yourself, basically. So
We're trying.
Very, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Anderson.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. And thank you for the tour. It's absolutely stunning. It just, uplifts the convention hall wonderfully as as you enter into the particular corridors. The one question I have is this the same company that's going to, or the big sign outside that's not currently being used? I can't remember exactly.
The marquee from the center?
The marquee, yeah.
Sure.
Is this part of the improvement process?
Yes and no. What we're going to do is, back in 2019, this budget allowed us to spend $175,000 to renovate the marquee. At some point in time between COVID happening, that project kind of got shelved. Then the priority became to have the expansion completed. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the $175,000 that was budgeted for that marquee, and we're going to make that investment into the marquee. The only thing that Expo Digital is really going to do is we're going to use their software to be able to run what's on that signage. And the saving grace that on twofolds is, one, we don't have to worry about a technician coming out and trying to figure out how to put that on there. Number two, it is all based on the code. The current sign code is actually written into the contract, so we won't have to adjust or anything and say, oh, this isn't going to happen, this is going to happen. And the saving grace is the way we wrote the contract. Should the sign code change, it all says that we just have to meet the sign code at that particular time. So if anything changes, we do have the flexibility to update that.
Okay. Oh, and Mr. Herrera, just so you know, you no longer have to explain to me why we're not an enterprise zone business over in the convention center. Dave did a good job of explaining that to me last week, so you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job on this, and obviously the convention center has that little dated 1980s look, so this gives it this is one way to make it look a little bit more modern and a little pizzazz to it. So congratulations. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Are we considering painting the outside? I was just curious.
You're gonna take all my surprises out. I wanted to kind of come do this periodically, so I get to stay in
Well,
front of you guys.
we'll take up all that on another day.
Part of the just a quick piece, we did the we're gonna do the feasibility, the campus assessment for internal and external. Part of that's gonna be pricing. My vision is not necessarily just the paint it, because I don't want to slap paint on it. There's a product that we used during the expansion for the Riverwalk that actually seals the concrete and makes it more smooth and has a better color to it. Again, not really sure why the pink and whatever color you want to call it is there, but that's intent to be able to get rid of. But I wanted to put that in the overall CIP master plan, as opposed to trying to just sit there and go one-offs here and there.
Yeah, very good. Well, good thing it was in the 70s, otherwise it would be avocado green.
You know, if it was 70s, it might be coming back, so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. So we're gonna move on, Ms.
And
Field.
thank you to our budget analyst for also, engaging in this process. Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you, council. Yeah, I'm just, Dennis Rahara.
I just thought you were stalking him.
Just wanted to get on camera. Dennis Rahara, Chief Financial Officer, and my compliments to the Convention Center for their, for their continuing proactive seeking of additional revenue. And thank you for explaining to Councilwoman Henderson. I appreciate that. I just wanted to add some supplementary finance information about something that Ms. Kopesky and I have been discussing, and that's particularly relevant in this case and some other cases in the city, and those are the limits we have on enjoying revenue sharing for our assets. It's called the private activity test, and I'm simplifying a bit here, but it's triggered by a couple of different components. The first component is you have a public facility, and of course the convention center is a public facility. The second component is you've used tax-exempt debt to build that asset, to expand that asset in some way for that asset. And if I could have the Elmo up, please. Can you let me know if you would when and if you can see it? All right, thank you. Yeah, there we go. Whoa, wrong way. There we go. Can you see that okay, council? All righty. And of course, here's the second trigger. Have you enjoyed tax-exempt financing associated with this asset? And we have, and this is our current state right now. You see it nearly $45 million. I will note, and you'll see that over on the right, the balance is zero. So we've obligated the funding in its entirety, but we're still making those debt service payments, and that's what this hinges on. Because of these first two components, a public asset and tax-exempt debt, that triggers the third component. And that component is severely restricting how much we can enjoy the benefits of a private business. And in this particular case, that's revenue sharing. And look to the Elmo again. This is the cover page to the Government Finance Officers Association primer on tax-exempt debt. You can see the title, Developing and Implementing Procedures for Post-Issuance, et cetera, et cetera. It is as riveting as it looks. But what it boils down to, and this is straight from that.
That was a very Guido joke.
Taking lessons.
I didn't get it.
My jokes are not that good.
Just saying.
Spoiler alert, it's not riveting. It's not riveting at all. But this is what it boils down to. No more than 10% of debt service on the bonds may be repaid or secured by payments arising from or related to private business use. And in this particular case, the private business use is the revenue sharing. So, and a little bit of behind the scenes of what we do in finance to make sure the city as an entity is on the straight and narrow. So if you exceed that 10% threshold, the bonds could lose their tax-exempt status. And of course, we don't want that to happen, and we ensure that doesn't happen because that tax-exempt financial instrument is very, very valuable to us and very valuable to our investors. A little more trivia. Why does the federal government do this? It's because in the absence of these restrictions, you could issue tax-exempt debt and simply construct private sector businesses and then reap all the profits. Yeah, exactly, which I would love from a revenue-producing perspective, but that's, basically, that's putting the thumb a little too heavy on the scale from the federal government perspective, because they give us this tax-exempt benefit under the promise that we're going to use it for a primarily public purpose. And that's what I'm trying to interconnect here. So every year, we run the numbers, we calculate the information, we review the information. And it's not just my shop, it's our financial advisors, it's our bond counsel, it's federal tax experts to make sure we don't meet or exceed that test. Again, so you can see that we can only make so much money. And again, that's why I particularly compliment the Convention Center for their continuing proactivity on this, but we want to make sure everything is within balance because of that tax-exempt debt. So again, just a little behind-the-scenes information as we continue to try to expand council's and the public's education on public finance.
Councilmember Clendon.
So is there ever a situation where the city issues non-tax exempt debt?
Do you mean taxable debt?
I'm sorry, taxable debt.
In certain situations, if, we've issued some in the past, but it doesn't occur to me. There are particular criteria. If, for instance, we find, the tax exempt debt has its own market, its very own market out there, and is just instrumental to getting large infrastructure projects done throughout the world. And if we found that the circumstances were more advantageous from a funding perspective to issue taxable versus tax exempt, then we'd go ahead and do that. But typically, we gravitate to the tax exempt for the benefits that we get from it.
So would I make an assumption that in every line of business that we have, that there's some debt associated with it, so there would never be an opportunity for us to exceed these limitations with these IRS rules? Is that?
It kind of ebbs and flows. For instance, we'll have an asset that we've financed with tax-exempt debt, and we'll pay it off, in which case this restriction goes away. Okay. Until or if we decide to do something else funded from a tax-exempt issue.
Bond it again.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, Abby Feely is up with item number 76.
Look forward to the expansion.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Abby.
Good afternoon, Council. Abby Feely. Just want to give you a brief update on where we are in the land development code process. We are in the assessment phase. You may remember we had a public kickoff September 16th. At that kickoff, we had 80 people online, and we had close to 90 people in person. So we had a great turnout for that meeting. In addition to that, we did post an online survey leading up to the kickoff and then kept that open after the kickoff until October 1st. We had close to 500 responses to our online survey, which was really awesome. So the consultant is currently working on the assessment portion. In the timeline, that comes before we get the first draft of the code. In the assessment, they go through our code and tell us what's outdated and propose how they're going to reorganize it, and some of their proposed changes that would be in it. So that is with staff right now, and we're reviewing that. It's a 5-chapter document. Once we provide our comments back, that will then go to the advisory team that we have. Remember, the advisory team is made up of 2 members from THAN. We have an architect, a landscape and natural resources person. We have NAOP, we have TBBA, we have land use attorney. It's a 12-member team that we are also using in order to provide another level of transparency and involvement through this process. That being said, we were looking to have our next public meeting and have the assessment presented and feedback taken by the public last week of January, that Tuesday night that you have now set the Bay Shore rezoning hearing for. So I'm gonna move the public meeting out to February 4th. I would request of council, what I was thinking is if we did it that week of January, you had a workshop that week, and I was hoping to have the consultant come and make a presentation to you at the workshop to show you where we are in the process, share some additional information with you instead of just the monthly updates that I'm providing to you. So I would ask if potentially February 6th, which I understand is a regular meeting, but if we could have 10 to 15 minutes for a presentation, just so that, and you don't have to answer me today, you can answer me next month or whatever, but I'd like to start to get that teed up, because we do really try to market these meetings, provide information about them, put a survey instrument up, get feedback, and continue to be engaged with the public on this process.
Councilmember Clendenin, Hurtak, Moore.
I'll defer to Councilwoman Hurtak.
And all I want to say is that Ms. Feely has talked to me about this. This is my motion to have her come the first week of every month. And that also just happens to be February 6th is when she's already coming to appear, but we're going to expect just a longer presentation.
That's fine.
And
that works. Mr. Shelby.
If I could follow up on that, maybe rather than just say a discussion of this way to give it 10 minutes, maybe my suggestion would be to limit staff reports to what exists today and not add to the February 6th staff reports. So you'd be able to.
It's a light agenda.
It's a very light agenda.
Okay, well, I'm just going to make a note of this. I guess it'll show up on the, actually, it's already there, but I don't know if you want to do anything separate of this to add the, or amend it, no, or just add something that has a consultant. But I think we should remain mindful as we approach adding things, that we keep that so we don't run out of time.
Then why don't we just limit it to 5?
Okay.
That's fair. Very good. That's February 6th. Councilmember Clendenin.
Ms. Feely, thank you so much for your briefing. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the length of time this is going to take the city to accomplish this task, and I've tried to clear that up. But for people that are listening, could you give, and I won't hold you to this if we don't make the deadline, but could you give a guesstimate of how long you think you'll have a product to present on the rewrite to complete this process?
I actually have a schedule. I mean, it is in our agreement with the consultant.
Right.
And I don't have that with me today in my brain. I don't want to misspeak.
We're not going to be here. We're not going to be here in 10 years talking about the land.
Can I bring that schedule back to you when I come December 5th?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, if I might add on that February 6th, I'm trying to be extremely mindful of my budget with the consultant. So they're going to do that Tuesday night meeting. Wednesday, we're going to do some work, and then Thursday morning we would present to you, and I'm going to have them here. Would it be possible to have a time certain on that and try so that they could make arrangements then to get out of town?
They charge by the hour, right? So
I'll make a motion to do a time certain directly after public comment.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, would it be more helpful to do it, because public comment could be so variable, like to do it
Like 1:30 when we get back from lunch?
Well, but we don't want to keep them, the point is to have them in the morning so they can leave.
Okay.
So
So
I
they
would
could go
think,
back to North Carolina, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we have police officer of the month, ATU local employee of the
so
month.
11 o'clock?
Yeah, so it'd be around 11, but that would be after public comment.
Time certain.
Yeah, so I will make the motion, I motion that we have the presentation, a time certain right after public comment.
Thank you
We have
very
a
much.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank
Feely.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to talk about the date, but I also have another question. So we're taking it off of the January workshop.
I never got to put
Okay, you
it
never,
on there.
because I was gonna say, I
Yeah,
don't see it on here.
That was my goal
Okay,
coming
okay.
today, and then I think last meeting was when you were working with Miss, I wanted to say Miss O'Dowd, Miss Wells, to get that Bay Shore hearing set. And while I was teeing up in my mind my schedule and getting that together with the consultants, that happened. So I never got the opportunity to ask. So I appreciate your flexibility today.
And the only other additional thing, I would love for us to be able to have a copy of the consultant's reports at the same time the city receives them. So is there a way that we could all get the emails of the actual report, whatever it is? You said they're in a I forget what you called it, a situation report? What kind of
They're
report?
doing the assessment.
Assessment.
They did- yes.
So if we could get that the same time that everyone else does, so we can take a look and see what the consultants have to say as well, I would appreciate that.
Yes, that's not a problem. So I'll just run down quickly. So it's a 5-chapter document. We've been working on it staff-wise, chapter by chapter each week, because we only have 30 days to get them back comments. when I transmit it back to them, then if there were typos or concept change, whatever, those are going back. So I don't want to give you a premature version. So when it's the version that would go to the public, is that okay?
No, I want to know exactly what the consultant has to say. That's kind of my point. So I want to know what the consultant rawly says.
Okay.
And then we'll get to see a second version of when it goes to the public. But I would like to see exactly what the consultant has to say. I don't care about typos or anything like that. I would just really obviously I'm a land use person. It's a passion of mine. So I just want to see exactly what the consultant
Would you be
has.
reviewing that and providing comments?
No, I just
Okay,
really
you
want
just
to, I want to
review
know
it. Okay.
what it says. And that's my only interest. I just want to be able to read through it.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
And now for the last item on the agenda, 77, Councilmember Vieira.
Yes, sir. And this will be a lot shorter, I think, than what I anticipated. So long story short, council, a lot of things developing on this issue, obviously. The county commission expressed interest, given the many issues that have happened in East County, given the many issues that have happened in town and country. County Commissioner Pat Kemp, I believe it was, motion to have parts of North Tampa, including in their assessment. I had met with County Administrator Bonnie Wise. I've spoken with Mr. Bede. I've spoken with Andrea Zellman and with different folks on having some sort of independent inquiry. And given the fact that the county's going to be briefed next Wednesday on theirs, I will need more time for that. So you have right now the county commission on November 13th being briefed on their independent third-party countywide stormwater investigative review post-Milton. At that meeting, it's mentioned by the county, and again, it's going to depend on what the county commission wants to do and then what this city council wants to do. I want to have all options on the table of potentially having Temple Terrace, Plant City, and City of Tampa being a part of that, because a number of issues. Number one, it's going to cost a lot of money to do this, and we need to go through with it no matter what, in my opinion. But the county appears to be, and again, they're going to be meeting next Wednesday, supportive of including the City of Tampa in this. The rationale for this would be, and again, council can discuss this on the 21st, among other reasons. Number one, the water doesn't stop at the city line. You have a lot of areas such as Forest Hills that have a lot of county, a lot of city. You have the university area, different parts along North Tampa, and I'm sure throughout other parts of the city. You have pumps that are county administered that deal with city areas. For example, it is believed that the pump challenge, whatever you want to call it, that happened with Fowler was from a county pump. So there's a lot of intermingling issues there. So the county has agreed to, along with what I'll be presenting, to present to City Council on their ideas to move forward with what they're doing. And they're open on November 21st. So that's what I'm suggesting that we do. I have 2 items that day that I can move for that to make room on the calendar. I can move them to January, February, whatever it may be, to make room on the calendar. Obviously, I mean, people's homes in my district have been destroyed, and the top thing that they want to know is, what did we do right? What did we do potentially not right? And how can we move forward in making sure that we, have things right going forward in the future? And so for me, this is something that time is of the essence. This is going to be a long process, but I want the process to get started. So that's why I asked for November 21st. We can have it at a time certain, whatever it may be. But unfortunately today, given the fact that the county's doing their thing and they're presenting it next Wednesday, I just don't have enough information to be able to go forward with any suggestions. So that's what I request, is to have this moved to the 21st.
So Councilmember Vieira, next Thursday we have a night meeting?
Yes.
And it's after their Wednesday meeting? Perhaps we get some more clarification?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we can get a time certain. And also, you have worked tirelessly in your district with the people that have been affected. I've been out there, Forest Hills, but I mean, all your work is very much appreciated because a lot of people are in a lot of pain. Yes, ma'am.
Under new business, I'm going to be talking about the SWOT analysis that I'm asking for from the city, and I'm going to be asking that comes to us on December 5th, which is just after that. Do you not see that somehow working together, or?
No, so that, what you're proposing is done by city staff, correct?
Yes.
I want something done by outside staff, and so the
Okay.
county is looking at, and obviously, it's nothing against city staff, it's just something like this, with discussions that have been had publicly, I feel that we need to have something outside of city staff. Obviously, I have a great relationship with city staff, but given this loss, I feel that we need to have an independent outside consultant. The county commission agrees for what they're doing. Plant City agrees. Temple Terrace, even though they're not affected, supports the idea as well. So that it's distinct, which is yours would be internal, totally support it, but I think we need to have something outside given the devastation.
Okay, and just knowing that that external report can use some of our internal.
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, does that conclude?
Yes, so may I make the motion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Might as well. Thanks. Thank you very much. So I'm requesting that staff from Hillsborough County provide, now, can we do it? Because again, we waived the rules for this because I think we were maxed out. This is obviously something where time is of the essence. We can either do it under staff reports. I will move to staff reports and have it at a time certain in the morning, or we can do it under ceremonials, whatever you want. We have a commendation. It's going to take 5 minutes. Whatever council wants.
If I can, Councilman Vieira, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it's really going to be, when they come on the 21st, you're going to have county staff appear, and it'll be primarily informational.
Yes.
But it will not be a long discussion, questions and answers with city council.
I don't think so.
I don't think we'd
Yeah,
have
we're
enough
here to
info.
listen, yeah, to see what they say.
Yeah. So the question is, I guess the request is that they show up perhaps earlier than later at a time certain, so they can
And
get back
capped
to.
on time.
Yeah, and
With
yes.
with a timer.
But before that, you said you were also going to move
Yes,
the
ma'am.
two
Yep,
items.
I
Okay.
have, and I will, you have my word of honor. If you look at November 21st, there was something there on Memorial Park Cemetery, and, yep, Memorial Park Cemetery in Oak Lawn, and then for Fowler. Yeah, so I was going to move those when it comes time for,
Okay. So
yeah.
We
So-
have a motion, sir?
Yes, sir. So I'm requesting that staff from Hillsborough County and myself provide a presentation at the November 21st, 2024 meeting regarding a review initiated by the Board of County Commissioners. Being mindful of the agenda and given the sensitive, timely nature of this, I request that this be heard at a time certain but kept to 10 minutes.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Henderson, and Mr. Shelby.
November 21st, Councilman Vieira, would you prefer that to be the first presentation, under presentations at 9 a.m.?
We can work with the county on that. Let's have it on top, but I don't know if it's first, second, third.
Okay.
I'd have to check with Brandon on that.
Okay, well, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, sir. That concludes the
Thank you,
agenda.
Council.
I'm going to hand this gavel over to the Chair Pro Tem, if I may make some new business.
Don't make me use it. Chairman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. You are so gracious. I have a couple of motions to make. I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation to Jacob Buckman, also known as Bookie Buckman, for his 10 years of service as a code enforcement magistrate. This commendation will be presented off-site at a future date to be determined.
We have a motion from Chairman Maniscalco, a second from, no, he did. A second from, excuse me, you're out of order. A second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation off-site at the West Tampa Chamber Awards Gala on November 12th at Higgins Hall to the following people. Sandy Sanchez, who is West Tampa's Woman of the Year, and also a good friend of many here. Leo Alvarez, West Tampa Man of the Year, another good friend and great community asset. And Bob Garcia, who is going to be receiving the George Guida Memorial recipient. I've known Bob for a long time, and all three of them, they're just wonderful, well-deserving.
We have a motion from Chairman Maniscalco. Do I have a second? Second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, and then the final item regarding city council renovations. I know I mentioned this a little bit ago about the amount of money that they wanted to spend and moving the chambers and all that. So everyone had until the end of October to meet with or talk to Adri Colina regarding this project. I'm not sure if everybody did, but due to other pressing matters we're dealing with in the city, especially the past 2 hurricanes, I'm suggesting that we table this until February of next year. I'll set a date to bring it back. So nothing is happening, but in the meantime, if you haven't met with her, because this was a lot of money and big changes, they wanted to move the chambers downstairs.
Yeah,
And
I already gave my comments.
you did? Okay, but I'll just bring this up in February. So no motion, just want to let you know.
I like this room.
Very good.
All right.
Can't have it back.
Thank you very much. Councilman Viera, do you have any other new business?
Yes, I do. A few. So first off, let me, if I may, move on November 21st. I'd ask staff to report with a plan of action for keeping local cemeteries clean, as well as the Fowler Vision Plan. And I apologize, I got to look for the date. How about 23rd, January 20?
Yeah, we can have as many of those as we want.
Okay, then how about this? I'll just do then the memorial, and I'll look for something else, but let me have that.
The one above it is yours.
Which one
Potential
is it?
locations of the fire maintenance and supply facility.
So I will move that, but let me talk to Chief Tripp. So yeah, so that you have a down payment on that one. But with this one, with Memorial Park Cemetery, let me do it for darn it, February 6th.
February 6th?
Yes, sir.
6th?
Did I say that? I'm sorry.
We
That's
have a
fine.
motion. Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Then y'all had gotten a memo on this. Many of y'all are, I think all of y'all are familiar with the late Harrison Boonstapple, who was killed in Ybor City. I believe it was on October 29th, if I recall the date of 2023. I've complied with the applicable ordinance with regards to disclosing his name, his background. We have statements, letters of support from Tom Pepin, state senator, former state Senate President Tom Lee, numerous disability activists, Karen Clay, Phyllis Guthman, et cetera, to rename the All Abilities Park in New Tampa after the late Harrison Boonstapple. Obviously, there was strong support of this from his family. I came into contact, I guess, if you will, with the family. The late Harrison was a student at Pepin Academies and actually spoke at his graduation, and obviously well before his passing. And so they're obviously in support of this. He was just, and y'all saw the letter, an amazing young man who fought for every inch of the playing field in life, and Pepin Academy's graduate. So if I may, I'd like to have this come back on March 27th of 2025.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
And then quickly, if I may, just 2 quick things. Mr. Bide had talked about a motion I did on the pump generators, and I can't find it on staff. Maybe I didn't, maybe I didn't do it properly. I don't know. But so let me remake or make the motion. I don't remember if we finalized it. God only knows. So I had wanted to do a motion. Mayor Castor has talked about funding backup generators. I think the number we're talking about is $4 million for this. So I want a motion to have city staff come forward with a plan of action on backup pump generators, including funding and other, and I know, and Councilman Carlson's going to make one on South Tampa. I don't want to intrude into Councilman Carlson's district. I'm talking about North Tampa short-term solutions. So my motion is for backup pump generators as well as short-term solutions for the challenges in North Tampa. And if I may, I'd like that to be on, let's do February 6th, please.
It's full now.
It is?
Once you do that, that's
Yeah, forget about it.
There you go.
Do we have a second? Second, Councilman Henderson, yes.
I have a question. Wasn't this part of the, I think maybe Wade didn't find it, because wasn't this part of the discussion of the SWOT analysis? We were asking them to include the.
Was it? Okay, when is that coming back?
When is that coming back? Do you remember, Lynn?
The 5th, but no, that's not part of my motion.
I thought that was part of our discussion about, like, you know.
It was part of our discussion, but I did not specify it in the motion, so I don't believe it's coming. That was not my intent for that to come back with the details of the money. The SWOT is supposed to be quick and.
Yeah.
quick and.
And
dirty.
when is that SWOT report again, Councilwoman?
The 5th of December will be the new
Okay,
one.
well, guess what? If we deal with it then, I'll withdraw it.
Yeah, because I mean, it all is kind of like, you know,
Oh, yeah,
as far as failures and
Yeah.
opportunities.
Absolutely, yep, y'all have my word.
But
All right.
I did want to mention that it's not coming to us on council, it's coming to us in email form. So it's
Okay.
not part of council.
Absolutely.
All right. Yes.
I think there's a specific issue on the generators. Most of the places in South Tampa had other problems, but there is a specific issue on the generators that needs to be addressed specifically, because that's gonna be a separate budget item. And it may come out of those other things, but we already know that that's an issue, so I think it's worth having it separately on the agenda. My motion I was gonna make is to have the staff give us, have a discussion about short-term solutions overall, because we need to figure out how to do that. But this is a specific thing we already know.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
And mine is for backup generators and North Tampa issues, but yeah, have we voted on it?
Do we have to? Oh, we have a motion and a second. Did you withdraw it or you? is the
No,
motion-
we're going, yeah, we're.
All right, we have a
oh, yeah.
motion and a second. What date? You said February 6th?
February 5th or 6th.
And then he said if we resolved it before.
Then I'll-
I think, Mr.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only suggestion is, I think those are two different issues, if you want to make two different motions, but the generators is a citywide thing, and it should be a separate thing, just in
Okay.
case they float differently.
Absolutely, yeah, no. So my motion is two-tiered. Number one, North Tampa flooding issues. Number two, the backup generators, which citywide, I'm told would be about $4 million. So yes, that is my intent.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Anything else?
Yes, sir. Then lastly, I want a written report from the administration. I had motioned, and I couldn't get a second, to get funds from the city of Tampa to help people short term, because FEMA to me is like Social Security. If you want a suit, it's going to give you a tie, a shirt, and belt. You got to get the rest. However, and I still support that, and I'll continue to push for that. But as a compromise, I want to have the staff report to us in a written report on what FEMA monies can, if there's FEMA monies that the city can get as a pass-through through the city to help people with these gaps that people are experiencing. Because I mean, guys, I'm talking to people every single day who are having to sell their homes to vultures and who are, going hungry, and it's terrible, terrible, terrible. So looking at that as a written report at just the next available city council meeting that we have.
You want to do a November 21st or a December 5th?
That's
21st.
not, the 21st is not enough time, because they'd have to get the report in
Okay,
tomorrow
December.
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
fit on
December
the.
5th.
December 5th, that's good.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Can I just make one comment about that? The like you all, I'm dealing with hundreds of people a day, and there are a lot of people frustrated about FEMA. Kathy Castor's office has agreed as a final resort to look at them and try to help them. And so the really difficult ones that have been rejected over and over again, her office has been helping. I don't know if she wants all of us to send it there, but you all know her, so you may talk to them about that. But because they have direct access to FEMA, they have been able to help.
Yes.
And I actually was out at a FEMA location in East County with Laura Lee. And so I know she's been familiar, and her office is working with it as well. So I think you probably would get support at the federal level from whoever you're speaking with.
If I may?
Yes.
Yeah, so if it's North Tampa or New Tampa, that's Congresswoman Lee. Everything else, I believe, is Congresswoman Castor.
So she was actually out at FEMA.
Yep.
So Congresswoman Lee was out there with us, and she was very, very engaged. And I know she had some constituency service. She had her staff there with her as well to familiarize with the process and for constituency services.
Yep, they've worked very hard with my office. Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, that's it, thank
And we
you.
voted on that? Okay. Councilmember Henderson, do you have any new business?
I do not have any new business.
Thank you very much. How about you, sir?
I just have a statement. I just want to reiterate my support of city staff and specifically solid waste for the job that they're doing post storms. The challenge is tremendous. There's a lot of things happening around the city. They're working tirelessly. Our staff, many of them, including our leaders, had home damage as well, but they showed up to work to help bring the city back to life. And I think especially if you compare it to other areas of the state that were impacted by the hurricanes, we are really humming along. I mean, you know, we're competing for help from everybody else, but this city is really recovering at a rapid pace. And again, all you have to do is look at some of the adjoining jurisdictions that were impacted, and you'll see that they've done a good job. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I think city staff has done a tremendous job. I applaud them. I think they've exceeded any kind of expectations that I would have had about the performance of a city after two such devastating storms. Thank you so much on behalf of my home, my family, my friends, and my neighborhoods, and the entire city. I think we owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Yes,
Second. Yes, absolutely. I mean, everyone's been working tirelessly. I want to amend my motion that I originally made on October 17th, 2024, and that motion was that staff be requested to provide Hurricane Helene and Milton SWOT analyses by November 8th. They have asked for more time, so I am actually asking for two separate things now, because now the, Chief Bennett was talking about the hot wash, which is actually an after-action report. So I'm going to ask for both of those. So I move to have Chief Tripp share their after-action report related to Helene and Milton with City Council to be delivered via email by December 2nd, 2024.
We have a motion from Councilmember Hurtak. Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yes, ma'am.
The second part of that is I move each department administrator provide a Hurricanes Helene and Milton SWOT analysis, no more than 2 pages per department, 1 report for both storms, to be delivered to City Council via email by December 5th, 2024.
We have a motion from Councilmember Hurtak, second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, wait. Yes, sir.
So if you spoken with staff, is that enough time
Yeah,
for them to? Okay.
yeah, this is, I had to, go through.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, ma'am.
And then this one, I have already talked to Mr. Baird about this, and this is fine. And this is kind of a project that Ms. Kopesky and I have been working on to look at larger projects and see how, we see the beginning, but we don't really look at the end and see how well we've done, if we're on budget, all of that stuff. So this is a little long, but I have it written down, so don't worry. I motion that staff create a 5-minute in-person report to present an overview of the soon-to-be-completed Lower Peninsula Watershed Plan project. This overview should include 1, the project approval timeline from 2019 to 2024, 2, detail of the cost components, 4, design services, including amendments, GMP agreement, and any change orders with Kimmons, 3, detail of additional work effort that consumed any of the $400,000 city-controlled and $3 million Kimmons-controlled contingency funds. 4, detail of any non-Kimmons costs. 5, description of deliverables associated with the constructions, for example, linear feet of box culvert, 9-acre pond, storm drainage, roads resurfaced, park amenities, etc. 6, key implementation dates and reasons for variances from original vendor deadlines. 7, financial comparison of budget to actual for project number 1000750. 8, options for use of unused capital funds, if any. 9, soft and hard benefits the city can expect from this investment. And 10, any other pertinent details staff believe would be helpful. I request the date for this presentation to be December 19th, 2024.
Right before Christmas. We have a motion and a second. Is there anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And this was regarding which project?
The Lower Peninsula Watershed Plan project that Kimmons, this is the one that Kimmons is going to finish before hopefully starting the next one. But yes, so Ms. Kopesky and I have asked for these for a couple of other projects, and it's kind of, and we've been working with the different departments, and they're happy to do it. They have all the info.
Yeah, no, it's very good. All right, anything else? No. Councilmember Carlson, you have quite a few.
It's the same as other people now. The first one is the short-term thing, and we're running out of dates now. All the dates that I had looked at are filled. I don't know if we can do it on the 19th or not. Let me just read it. Motion to ask staff to report back as to the possibility of finding short-term solutions that would immediately prevent rainfall flooding in the areas where it occurred during the recent storms. Examples would be to dredge the canals and stormwater ponds in the area around Azeel north of Memorial Hospital, or to remove the concrete foundation in Fountain Park. These ideas and others tailored to each neighborhood could prevent flooding during the 3 to 4 years during which longer-term solutions would be built.
Absolutely. Any second?
Yeah, second, but we should be able to do that on the 19th.
Can I do it on the 19th? Okay,
We
December
have
19th.
room on the 19th? Yeah.
December 19th.
Can you repeat it?
This is about short-term
Okay.
solutions.
I know, I
for
just
the-
wanted to repeat it.
Yeah.
The motion to ask staff to report back on December 19th as to the possibility of finding short-term solutions that would immediately prevent rainfall flooding in the areas where it occurred during the recent storms. There was flooding from storm surge, so this is just the rainfall part. Examples would be to dredge the canals and stormwater ponds in the area around Azeel north of Memorial Hospital, or to remove the concrete foundation in Fountain Park. These ideas and others tailored to each neighborhood would prevent flooding during the 3 to 4 years during which longer-term solutions would be built.
And we also, we had from public comment this morning about that neighbor down in Palmasita today too, about with the ditches and.
That's it. That's
Yeah, so this is, there were just two examples
Actually,
there.
much further south.
Just two examples, and it doesn't stick us to any of those, but it just has them come back. It sounds like, Vic and I had lots of conversations, but it sounds like he has a bunch of ideas already. But the biggest question I'm getting is, how are you gonna, we thought a storm was gonna come this week, and everybody's saying, what are you gonna do? Not the city, what are you gonna do to stop the flooding in my neighborhood now? And, yeah, we need to answer that as quickly as possible, I think.
All right, motion, is there a second? Second. Second, Councilmember Clendenin, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir,
Thank
that
you.
was great.
The other one I sent out, three more. The other one I sent out was about the tree canopy study. So we talked to some staff, we talked to consultants. It sounds like the tree canopy update, just to do a small update just of the trees and their current status, is $10,000 to $20,000. Frankly, if the city can't find, I'll pay it myself. The issue is that, number one, just by looking around, I think we've lost 10 or 20% of our tree canopy in South Tampa in the last month. We need to, the pro-tree people want to know where we stand, so we can reset. We can't wait 2 more years before the next big plan comes out. We just need to do a quick update just to see where we stand. And then number two, what happens is that, remember the last time they presented, they said, well, because city council approved so much development, we lost 4% of our tree canopy. Well, if the next report in 2 years comes back and says we lost 20%, then everybody's going to say that was because of development. But what we need to do now is find out how much do we lose just because of the storms, and that will set a new precedent. So we can change the dates or whatever you guys want, but I motion to have staff complete it and update the tree canopy study summary and provide council with a written report for the May 1st, 2025 session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, yes, Councilmember Clendenin.
Oh my gosh, the tree people are gonna hate me. I think that the intent is good, but we have so many problems with storm recovery right now, and staff and this is not gonna be let up.
This is outsourced to USF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's not- it's not
without
internal.
anything from staff at all?
In fact, USF said the pictures exist, and all they have to do is analyze it. They have some algorithm for analyzing it.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be some staff input, but it's just engaging the contract and moving.
And you're right. Now, I'm also concerned that we still won't even recognize, because some of these trees were so badly damaged, they still could be dying, and we don't even know that for a little bit as well, but I'm sure USF would be capable of doing that. I withdraw my objection.
Yeah, no, I think it's great because, as you say, the blame will fall on us, and it can't be with development, overdevelopment, or approving or not approving projects. I mean, this storm took out so many trees. Mother Nature's work, not what city council did, and it's good to have an updated analysis. Well, it's good to have the update. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, sir. 2 more?
Yeah. This is one, the next one is about seawalls. I've never heard of this before. Maybe you all have heard, but suddenly a constituent reached out to me, and then his whole condo reached out, and like 4 or 5 departments in the city, people went out, looked at it. And there's a barge that comes up to the seawall in Davis Islands, and a big truck comes up full of construction equipment. They offload, this is not a commercial dock. It's just a regular seawall in a residential neighborhood, and they're unloading equipment onto the barge, and then the barge goes over to Harbor Island. And we have got our U.S. Army Corps, we got legal department, and nobody can find that anybody's permitted to do it. The problem is the guy who originally reached out to me has a serious health issue, and they're making loud noises early in the morning, late at night, but also it doesn't appear to be permitted, and we don't know what kind of damage these kinds of things might do. So I would like to make a motion, ask the legal department to return whatever date on December 19th to discuss the possibility of creating an ordinance that would prohibit the commercial use of seawalls or docks in residential areas except in locations specifically designated for commercial use. Any possible ordinance would also regulate the type of usage, hours of operation, sound requirements, and any need for a permit.
Second, that's very unusual. You said it goes from Davis Islands to Harbor Island?
Yeah, and just to let you know, Pirate Taxi also goes there, and nobody's opposed to Pirate Taxi, and so
Yeah, but it's not noisy like this.
there needs to be some kind of permitting process. You couldn't,
They're also not going for someone's house.
yeah, it's weird that it's not a dock.
It's a construction for like, they're tearing down a house and building a new house.
They're, I don't know what they're doing on Harbor Island, but they're unloading huge, I could show you the picture, huge equipment onto, from a truck onto a barge at Davis Island, then they take it over to Harbor Island and do something with it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who was the second? Second from Hertag.
The last one, say the most controversial one, the last, the Jackson House. You all know that in 2012, Ernest Hooper asked me to go meet with Willie Robinson. I met with him, and he had a letter from the Buckhorn administration saying they were going to tear down the Jackson House a week later, and they were going to fine him $60,000 plus the cost of tearing down the Jackson House. I called Linda Salsena, who came into City Council the next day. I think 2 or 3 of you were on City Council at the time, and the City Council at the time overturned the decision and saved the Jackson House. A group of us then tried to save it, and the administration fought us. Since then, a foundation has controlled it, and there are family members on the foundation. You all remember the chair of the foundation was here a year ago, and I asked her publicly, I'd asked her privately first, and then publicly, can you come back in 2 months and present an update on what your renovation plan is? And she said yes, and she thought that was sufficient time. Every month thereafter, while Elise was still here, he begged her to come reschedule, and every month they canceled. And every week, and especially around storms, somebody posts a picture of the Jackson House, and they say, why isn't City Council doing something to save the Jackson House? And USF is ready to help. Tampa Bay History Center is ready to help. All we need is the Jackson House, and deals are done with the Cardis already. They're tired of getting blamed for it. We need the Jackson House Foundation to step up. You all saw that somebody sent me an email today. I talk about this all the time. We've had 13 years or so of waiting for them to do something. They've done very little, and all of it was years ago. We, through the CRA board, gave them offered $1 million. Jeff Bennett gave them $1 million, and we're still waiting for them to even tell us what they're doing. And so what I'd like to do is start the process of at least putting up fines or levying something so that we can take control of it. If we don't take control, it's going to fall down. And the Cardis probably would be happy with that, right? And so the foundation is not affiliated with the Cardis, but why should we let this thing fall down when the Cardis have gone out of their way to allow the space to have them to operate this? And everybody's ready to do something, but the foundation won't work. If we set up a date to have the staff come update us on the possibility of condemnation, and the Jackson House Foundation, I'll send that lady an email later after this, if they want to come here and present their renovation plan, not present excuses, they want to present their renovation plan, then we can accept that and cancel this. But I would like to make a motion, ask staff to report back on December 19th as to the possibility of the city levying fines and or condemning the Jackson House property with the purpose of taking it over before a storm destroys it. Once the city has possession of the property, the city would then work with USF, the History Center, and the Jackson House Foundation to renovate and rebuild the structure. City Council and the CRA board have been asking the Jackson House Foundation. I'll leave the rest of it out.
All right, we have to do a second from Councilmember Clendenin. I wanted to say a couple of things.
Yeah, same here. I want to thank you, Councilman Carlson, for your leadership on this, and I think that your thoughts here are well thought out. I think that, so, this is one of those things you got to get off. Something's got to be done. So, if not this, then something. Maybe this will provoke action to move this forward. And again, thank you for you've been an advocate for historic preservation throughout the city. You know, Union Station and the Jackson House are two of your projects, and thank you for bringing this forward today.
Yeah, thank you as well. I'll tell you that when I got elected in 2015, which you supported me, thank you very much, because it was a very narrow race. It was a short gap between election night and getting sworn in, and I had orientation here in the city of Tampa. And the first meeting I had was with the previous mayor, and the first thing out of my mouth was, "What about the Jackson House?" And it was, "Well, if it was your house or my house, it would have been demolished a long time ago." And nothing has happened since. It's gotten worse. I mean, I've been documenting this myself, taking pictures before I got elected, since getting elected, and I was able to get a tour one day. And I have the pictures, which they're fascinating photos because each room is a different color. The electrical panel is using fuses that are from the 1970s, but inside it's wooden trusses that are just keeping it held up. And we're in a tropical climate. There's broken windows. It rains. The humidity is damaging all that wood, but it's such an important, beautiful structure. I had a conversation Sunday afternoon with a gentleman who loves Tampa history, talking about the Jackson House, Union Station, segregation, who stayed there. I mean, it's one of Tampa's most significant structures. I'm tired of waiting for something to happen. You know, Mr. Vinnick gave $1 million. USF did their 3D mapping. We can't, time is of the essence. This is going to be demolition by neglect. You mentioned the adjacent property owners. I mean, everybody else has done their due diligence. Now it's just, I think we need to take that bold step to explore, as you said, saving and protecting this house, because it's invaluable. I mean, it's something that is so important to the history of this community. We can't lose it.
You know, we lost the Moss Brothers building through demolition by neglect. That's exactly what happened. That thing just crumbled out from underneath the city. So it's the same thing. So
I watched that demolition. I mean, that was an entire city block from the 1920s. But the Jackson House, I think, can be saved and can be put to good use. Again, it's too important. So we have a motion and a second.
I have a question. Yes, definitely. Councilman Carlson, there is the part of me that greatly appreciates where you're coming from on this. There's two things. I spoke to Carolyn Collins, who's the president of the foundation. She says no one has reached out to her and, regarding this within a certain amount of time so that she could have an opportunity to present herself before us. And I think just kind of like the McDill situation, we should give it one more shot where she stands before us publicly to say what it is that she needs to say before we make a decision like this, of this magnitude. The other part is that I feel that we would be opening a can of worms if we were to take over the Jackson House, and we will be in under our heads, and it would have cost us a significant amount of money unless all of those funds that were given to them, the foundation, comes over with us. And I think that'll be a tiny fraction of what it would really cost to bring it back together. I just happened to watch it wasn't a documentary, but there was an African-American structure that they literally took it apart and moved it to another city and put it back together. When I look at the Jackson House, and I said this a year ago, that is standing up by a wing and a prayer. And the first person after the storm, the second one, Milton, Abby Feely said to me, the Jackson House is still standing. It is standing by a wing and a prayer. It really is. And I just feel as though if it comes into our possession, it's just going to be a huge problem when it falls apart. And then everyone will be expecting us to fix it, and it's going to cost more money than we bargained for. I just really don't feel like it's our responsibility. I think the Jackson House, which is a predominantly black organization, give them an opportunity to solve their own problems, and we should encourage them to move with expediency to do so that we will not be placed in this situation. I just don't think that we need to be the savior right now until we at least hear from them, give them this opportunity to come before us at least one more time. That's my opinion on it, and so I don't want to support it, you know, although I really feel like you do care about it. I mean, you've given me a lot of indications about that, even including the artwork in the hallway, the corridor, our office space here, that I didn't know that that's what it was. So I appreciate it. It's not that I'm fighting you on it, but I do believe that we should allow Carolyn Collins to come before us, and if she doesn't show up, you know, or whatever the case may be, and if anything, they need to ask us for the help that they truly need if something's happened, because the Cardis have done their part. It seems like all of the other things are in place. I just don't want to take it over and then it collapses on our watch, and now they want us to put it back together at an expense that we weren't anticipating.
Councilmember Carlson and Hurtak.
Just to respond to a couple things. As you said, I love the Jackson House so much. I don't know if you know the painter Dean Mitchell. He's an internationally known painter. I bought a painting from him of the Jackson House. No, those are photographs of the inside of the Jackson House. Those are the photographs of, and people can't see them. But when we were trying to save it 12 years ago, a photographer went in and there were handprints by Willie and his family on the wall, and she took those photos and made an abstract photo of it that's on the wall in City Council. But in my house, I personally bought a painting by Dean Mitchell of the Jackson House. That's how much, and I had Lenny Foster, who's a civil rights photographer, come over and take photos of the Jackson House. So I love the building and I want to save it. In terms of contact, Elise left how many, 3 months ago, something like that? He contacted them at least once a month. He rescheduled with them like 8 times just in the last year. And so I agree that we should give them one more time, but I want to schedule this and then see if that lights a fire into them to come meet with us, because they haven't had an urgency to meet with us at all. And they need to not just tell us excuses, they need to tell us what their plan is. Because to answer your question, the money really is going to go to the History Center, and the History Center is going to lead the construction of it. And so I don't want the city to take it over either. But what the Jackson House Foundation needs to do is they need to turn over control to the History Center now, so the History Center can operate this.
And that would be another white predominantly organization taking over another black space, just like the forthcoming History Center in the Scrubs. It's just give them this opportunity. And Bill, what if it falls apart on our watch? What if it falls apart and we can't put it back together?
The keeper of Black history in Tampa right now, as it is the History Center, arguably the top Black historian in Tampa is at the History Center. And so he and his colleagues would and a team from USF, but they're going to work with the Jackson House Foundation, because you can't do anything without having the family involved.
Councilmember Hurtak Vieira.
So why don't we offer, what date did you want this?
December 19th. You want me to?
So why don't you invite them to come December 19th as well? Because this is not
fair.
So this is not saying we're taking it over. We're getting information from the city, and we're going to have information from them at the same time.
Yeah, let's invite them all.
That way, we can make a decision, or we can have a discussion as a group.
How about I'll just add to my motion,
like
and
that?
I'll add to my motion to and invite the Jackson House Foundation to speak.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, we need to give them the opportunity, just like we did with
I completely
the
agree.
folks in the hotel.
And I have the exact same sentiment as you, as we cannot take, as a predominantly white body, we should not be taking over what is predominantly an African-American experience. It's relevant to the city, but more importantly, it's relevant to the community, and I'm very uncomfortable with it.
I am too, and I was actually talking about St. James at Encore when I say that, and the History Center does have control over that space, and I'll just leave it at that. And so I can support that, expecting, yes.
How about
and maybe she's listening today because she is aware of this.
How about it, and in addition to the other motion, which I could read again if you want, and invite the Jackson House Foundation to present their renovation plan.
As a council member, I can accept that.
Councilmember Vieira?
Thank you very much. So I had very serious concerns about this. I would, for me to support part of it, I would need, and again, whatever, the votes are there, but to have the invitation be separate from this, there's a lot of complicated issues with this, with neighbors, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of things. I think that, as Councilwoman Hurtak and Councilwoman Henderson have said, for us, a political body, a municipality, to start to make threats against a predominantly African-American organization on something like this, it has to meet a higher level of scrutiny that I don't think is there yet. However, number one, this is something that is potentially worthwhile, that it gets people's attention, and I know that's what Councilman Carlson wants to do in that. But number two, inviting them to come on December 19th, and by the way, that's 6 days from Christmas. Maybe they got to do it before, maybe they got to do it afterwards. But have them. I wrote down order to show cause. You know, as an attorney, if the judge says, "Listen, you're going to be here on this date. Show cause as to why I shouldn't dismiss your lawsuit." It's kind of like that. Not that we're ordering them to be here, but that just we'd like for them to be here on a certain time. So for me, I can't support at this time something like that before we exhaust other remedies. I do support having them come with the direction of, listen, tell us what you're doing. We want to preserve this. Help me, help you. That's my feeling.
Councilmember Hurt.
Why don't we say tentatively that this is the date, and if that doesn't work for them, we can move the entire thing to a date that does work for them. And that way,
Yeah, there's plenty of time.
yeah, so we don't, it's not set in stone that it's the 19th, and if they have to move it, they have to move it. But either way, we'll have all that information.
Councilmember Clinton.
And for the record, I did
What?
not know that Drongo was reaching out to them several times
Yes.
and them not showing up.
Yeah,
I was-
please
continue.
call.
I
any-
know that they were scheduled, but even one of those times she said she wasn't aware of, so.
I have the floor.
I'm sorry. Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sitting here shaking my head because, again, I'm going to reiterate my applause to Councilman Carlson about his leadership on this. And what I'm hearing is the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I can tell you that, yes, Elise did reach out multiple times. In this chamber, the head of the Jackson Foundation was before us and was asked to come back and give these reports. So we've already gone down this process and nothing has happened, and it's deteriorated that much further. We have a vested interest in the city, not a financial interest, and also a cultural interest on behalf of the city and all the residents of the city that have come before us and passed and live here today and will live here tomorrow, to pursue this to the best of our ability. I think having some type of threshold, because clearly this isn't gone on just a year. This has gone, how many years has this gone on? This football it's like Charlie Brown. You know, the football gets set up and then Lucy pulls the football out from under him every single time. So there's got to be a moment, and I think that moment passed a long time ago. We just didn't have the guts to pull the trigger. Is this time has come and gone. They need to come before this council. We've invested money. Nonprofits other companies have invested money. They need to come forward this council with a plan, or they need to relinquish control. And if they won't do that, then I think what Councilman Carlson's objective is absolutely accurate. Then you know, it's either the carrot or the stick, and that's where we are.
We have a motion and we have a second.
What is and I want to be clear, because if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, if the motion is geared towards come on this date, and if we don't get something satisfactory, then we're going to start exploring something like this. That's something I can support. But putting that on the menu this time, like I said, when I saw the memo, I didn't know about Elise. I'll reach out to him. I think the memo came out on Tuesday.
Multiple times. I've gotten so many briefings from him on this, and we've had so many discussions. Maybe that's part of my frustration. I know this has gone on forever.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
I think he was, if he had hair, he would have been pulling it out.
And I can reach out to him as well. But again, that's what I prefer. I didn't have an opportunity to do after Tuesday because I was mourning the election, but that's okay.
All right, Councilman Carlson, you want to clarify your motion?
Yeah, and all it's saying is that they'll come back and talk to us about the possibility of it. We're not going to vote on that day to demolish it. And by the way, had Linda Salcena not intervened in 2012, it would have been torn down already, and Willie's family would have been out $100,000 or more. So, motion to ask staff to report back on December 19th as to the possibility of the city levying fines and/or condemning the Jackson House property with the purpose of taking it over before a storm destroys it. Once the city has possession of the property, the city would then work with USF, the History Center, and the Jackson House Foundation to renovate and rebuild the structure. And we will invite the Jackson House Foundation to present their renovation plan at the same time.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm okay with it for now.
Okay.
Motion carried with Vieira voting no and Miranda being absent.
Anything else? Motion to receive?
No, can I just say, Councilmember Henderson, if you can help us to get them to come for a renovation plan, you'll be my hero. So please,
You already are one.
I appreciate it. I just, we'll see.
Yes.
It's not in our budget.
It would be CRA.
And council, my son has a play at 6:30.
I have a funeral.
I apologize.
Is this
I
the
need to
last
run.
thing? Motion to receive it, file?
What do you, wait.
Okay.
My question is, since you're asking an outside party to appear, would you like this under ceremony?
Can we make it? Is it okay with you? Yeah.
that's fine.
So it's convenient for them.
He's got to go.
Council, this is not going to be a short you're limited to 5 minutes or
10.
10 minutes ceremonial.
But-
My suggestion, if you want to do a time certain first thing after lunch, that's another thing.
Okay, 1:30
Yeah.
time certain?
That's fine.
Okay, yeah.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes?
I have something that I've been asked to relay to you. Because of the storms, we had several night meetings. We had 2 night meetings canceled. And now, per the code, those items have been moved to, let's say, next week's evening meeting, and the alcoholic beverages will move to the one
week
at the
after.
28th. So, the 21st, the 14th is next week, and then the 21st, that's right.
That's
we have a
right.
holiday. So basically, where we stand now is, it looks like when next week's agenda comes out on Friday, you will see for next Thursday night, 15 items on the agenda.
I love it.
Now, I don't know, and the way it's going to be stacked is the items that were continued from October will be first on the agenda because those people are already a month behind. And then I'm just going to ask, we're going to find out what can be continued. Council may want to contemplate giving people the opportunity up front to ask for continuances
fine.
without penalty. But I'm just asking you to be prepared for, and I believe there might even be actually more than 15 on the agenda because you're going to have some that might be continued or asking for continuances already.
It's a total of 19, and you have one that's not going to be heard because they missed notice, and then you're going to have 3 continuous requests.
So we're at 15.
Okay. I just request that we have dinner. That's all I
Yeah,
want.
yeah,
Dinner and
Chair.
some snacks.
That's all,
And not pizza.
Yes, yeah, not
And
pizza.
not pizza is what
If
the
other city
request
staff
is.
can work the way they've been working after the
But
post.
what-
Yes,
what
yeah,
I-
we can do it too.
But I bring this
but
to
yeah.
your attention today, to be prepared for next Thursday, both with regard to food, also with regard to being well-rested and prepared for that, and also a good period of time up front for housekeeping to be able to give people an opportunity to determine how you're going to handle the evening.
The only thing I ask is that at that meeting, we also have a clear, it says we have 9 for December 12th. So just to have an update of where those 9 stand. So if people do want to move, we have because, I mean, December is just insane. Yeah, so that's the only thing that I would request, is maybe having December and January's
I think when,
dates.
You're gonna have really any continuances for next week, because in speaking with Susan, how she said, I think.
they won't, I don't think.
Yes? No. Anything
No,
else?
let me just think. No, good night, thank you.
A motion to receive it, file.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, we are adjourned.
Okay, I have a few-